This is Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to a big game day edition of Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Huss and Remo with you, Andrew Paterson, Michael Remis, and tonight, we've been waiting for this one for a while. Center of the universe, Toronto, Ontario. Leafs and Jets tonight, top two teams in Canada going at it. 6 o'clock puck drop. We are all over it. John Matisz of The Score is going to join us. Shockingly, not to talk about the Leafs, but in fact, talk about one Kyle Connor of the Winnipeg Jets. He's got a great piece on the most overlooked superstar in the National Hockey League, and he'll jump on in a few minutes. We'll also welcome in our pal Brandon Rewucki. Get Brandon's thoughts on this tilt tonight, and maybe a little bit of football as well we'll poke in. But and then I can't think of a better way to get hyped for puck drop tonight than for the Winnipeg Jets hype man, none other than Jesse Pollock of BarDown. He'll be making an appearance here on WST in his hometown as we get ready to see the blue and white take on the Winnipeg Jets tonight. I am fired up. Hope you are as well. Welcome to everyone listening to us on the podcast on the way home from work. And shout out to everyone with us live on the YouTube channel. As always, make sure you hit that red subscribe button and do us a solid and hit that thumbs up for the episode. Lets other people discover WST. And for you YouTube viewers that might not be aware, make sure you search Winnipeg Sports Talk and give us a sub on your favorite podcast platform. So if you're not able to join us live on the video show, you're at least able to listen at your convenience. All right, huge thanks to the sponsors that make this show happen each and every day as well. Our friends at Princess Auto, Coolbet Canada, Little Brown Jug, Canadian Club, Culligan Water, Vita Health Fresh Market, Wallace & Wallace, Consolidated Supply, Manitoba Battery, F Apparel, the Nick and Nicky DQ Group, Boston Pizza, Royal Sports, and a big why not question of the day coming up from our friends at Not Auto Corp at Waverly and McGillivray. Michael Remis, are you ready to drop the puck tonight or what? I'm fired up.
I am itching with anticipation here for tonight. I just finished listening to all of the media scrums from Rick Bowness and Perfetti. Man, there's a lot of media there asking questions, and they're trying to learn about this Winnipeg Jets team that has surprised everyone around the NHL as they're first in the Central Division. Shout out to the Dallas Stars who blew their 3-0 lead against San Jose. Yes, the Jets still first place in the Central. No one saw this happening, and Canada's two top teams going at it tonight. Not quite Hockey Night in Canada game. I guess that's kind of good if you prefer the Dan and Kevin broadcast, but I think a lot of eyes, and I'm going to be enjoying seeing all the Toronto media I follow on Twitter finally giving the Jets their due.
It was quite hilarious to see the crowds around the Winnipeg Jets players today. And we're going to hear from Rick Bowness as well. I mean, essentially, it's like the who's who of the hockey media asking about Rick Bowness one by one and all these guys having career years that have been huge parts in this great Jets season through 45 games. And, well, listen, it's no surprise to anyone that watches this show or listens to this show on a regular basis. We've been watching this team through 45 games, but they sort of have snuck up on a lot of people around the National Hockey League. And, it was interesting. I was hearing James Myrtle earlier today with JT over on OB speak about something that we have talked about. Who's done a better job this year than Rick Bowness? Well, this is a perfect opportunity. For those of you that have a Rick Bowness future, like yours truly, I don't think that there could be a bigger boost to not only his opportunity for Jack Adams, but I mean, if we're talking about Josh Morrissey to be legitimately in that Norris conversation, Connor Hellebuck for the Vezina, a huge game tonight with all these eyes on them would be massive. But first things first, this is a huge chance for the Jets to reclaim sole possession of first place in the Western Conference. Remo mentioned that Dallas lost last night very quickly. Great for the Jets, terrible for my parlay. We had everything else done. Dallas was up 3-0. And then the Sharks came back with 5 unanswered to hand them a loss in regulation. So going into tonight's matchup, the Jets are in first place in the Central Division, are in first place in the Western Conference, and do have a game in hand on the Dallas Stars, both tied at 59 points. Meanwhile, the Toronto Maple Leafs, 45 points, same amount of games played, just 2 up on the Winnipeg Jets with a stellar 27-11-7 record on the year. And this is going to be a huge test for the Jets, Reem, as the Leafs have been one of the best teams in the National Hockey League on home ice. Their away record is just so-so. I mean, they're 11-8-3. It's certainly not bad. But downtown Toronto, 16-3-4, coming off that big comeback win against Paul Maurice's Carolina Panthers on Tuesday. This is going to be a test for the Winnipeg Jets, but as we talked about yesterday, you'd have to think that they'll be motivated, ready to go, looking to bounce back from an ugly night in Montreal in, well, put it this way, under as much scrutiny and eyes as they'll probably have had all season long.
Oh, yeah. I saw, all the big media there, Chris Johnston, Mark Masters there asking questions. So they know this is a big one. I really do think last game they kind of took Montreal a bit easy. Thought there was going to be a walk in the park. We didn't play our best versus Arizona, but hey, we still won, and maybe we can do that again. Or, I don't know, we're going with the friends and family narrative. It was homecoming in Detroit for Connor, and Connor didn't go well. Minnesota didn't go well earlier, and that was Dubois homecoming. Didn't go, which kind of makes me nervous because Cole Perfetti, they asked him how much family and friends he had, and he said too many to count, which actually is awesome. I think it's great to see these guys having support and being able to play. It's just a funny coincidence, Hustler, how these friends and family games haven't worked out. But I know the Jets always get up for these games against Toronto. We remember last year, and we've talked about it so much. Doesn't Ehlers try to fight Joe Thornton one game, and we talked about Spezza kneeing Neil Pionk and Pionk getting up and everyone. I can't wait. And I did see a tweet from Garrett Hull said, "Who's looking forward to the refs losing control of this game and no penalties getting called and both fan bases yelling at each other online?" I think it's definitely possible, but I'm fired up for this one.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm fine with that. I'm just pumped for people to be yelling at each other online because of their teams that they support instead of other things that they've been yelling at each other online for the last couple of days about. So let's keep it to hockey tonight and have a great one. And you're exactly right. I mean, the games, and I would say this in some ways sort of started back in that year of the pandemic when it was the Canadian division, when all of a sudden, instead of seeing these teams a couple times a year, you're seeing them 8 and 10 times a season. But really it dates back to the Pionk incident, the hit, then the flying knee from Spezza, which honestly, unfortunately, has sort of been somewhat of a turning point for Neil Pionk because, of course, before that, he had such a brilliant season for the Winnipeg Jets, extended his contract with the club, and at times he's been very up and down, shall we say. And I think a lot of people sort of look back to that moment, but there was a little bit of animosity. There's a lot of anticipation for this one tonight. And certainly if the Winnipeg Jets were planning on mixing in a statement game somewhere along the line, I think their fans would love nothing more than for it to be tonight. Now, let's get to, first of all, and we'll hear from Rick Bowness on this. Take this all with a grain of salt, folks, because it does sound like the Winnipeg Jets are going to start tonight's game. And I emphasize start the game with the lines that they were working on yesterday in practice, which is Blake Wheeler playing alongside Connor and Dubois, Morgan Barron and Nikolai Ehlers on the wings with Mark Scheifele, Adam Lowry, Saku Menelainen, and Cole Perfetti on the left side on that third line, And standing in the middle of Sam Gagner, who returns to the lineup, and Carson Kuhlman, Axel Janssen-Fjallby, odd man out when it comes to the forwards tonight. And as far as the defense goes, and I know Dylan Sandberg was kicking around this morning, but it does look like Ville Heinola is getting back in. And certainly for him on a personal level after a real rough night in Montreal, a great opportunity for Ville to get back to being the player that, I think had really earned a lot of confidence from the coaching staff over his previous recent starts with the Winnipeg Jets. So Heinola with Schmidt, Dylan with Pionk, Morrissey, DeMello, and there's no doubt, Remo, who's going in the blue paint for the Winnipeg Jets in a big game like this. It's the guy that is the backbone of this franchise, Connor Hellebuyck.
Oh, yeah, there's no doubt about it, Hassan. It was kind of funny how the schedule worked out. You thought, he plays Rittich played the back-to-back Friday, and we had discussed, well, do they go with Rittich against Sunday against Arizona, who, you would want to start your backup against? And then you also had Montreal, who's a bottom team as well, but Hellebuyck, this is third straight here since the back-to-back, and I don't know when Rittich is going to get in next, but hey, you got the All-Star break coming up soon, so everyone's going to be getting some rest at that time. So yeah, you want Hellebuyck going for the Jets, and it's Ilya Samsonov going for Toronto, who came in relief the other night after Matt Murray gave 4 on 8 shots against the Florida Panthers in that crazy game. So, again, I think it's going to be, you could see some goals tonight. Wouldn't surprise me, or you see Hellebuyck stand on his head. I don't know, but I think this is going to be exciting. Either way, Huss.
Samsonov, by the numbers, has been the guy for the Leafs so far this season. Now, he and Matt Murray have pretty much evenly split games, but Samsonov has slightly better numbers. Certainly a great record, 13-4-1. He's got a .224 goals against average and a save percentage of .916. Matt Murray had been having a phenomenal season as well. He's at a .911. That's after a .500 save percentage last game, so certainly those numbers took a little bit of a hit. But regardless of who's in net, I mean, playing at their best, certainly the Winnipeg Jets have a bit of an advantage in goal, but you might need that going up against a team that boasts some of the best offensive players in hockey, led by Mitch Marner, 54 points through 45 games. William Nylander really turned into a star, sort of thought of as a secondary star by some in Toronto. Not the case this year. 24 goals leading the Toronto Maple Leafs and 50 points in 45 games. And of course, there's Austin Matthews, still one of the best in the world. 43 games, missed a couple recently, 49 points so far. And John Tavares, a point-a-game player as well. A very interesting matchup between two teams, both with some of the top offensive players in the league. And then we can't forget about Josh Morrissey. And this is a great chance for Morrissey to, continue his push to move from Morrissey to Norrisy under the bright lights of Toronto. Let's hear from Rick Bowness first off, because there was plenty of attention on the guy we call Bones last night. We'll start it off with Remo. Here's Bones on the matchup tonight in Toronto against the Leafs.
Well, listen, this should be a great hockey game. They've got a very impressive road record. I know Sheldon and his staff have done a great job and they're cutting down their goals and chances again. So we're going to have to work for everything we get. We take pride in our goals against as well. So it should be a very entertaining game because they can score and we've got some guys that can score. So these are one of those games that coming in here only once a year, you should get very excited about, and we all are.
All right, so we knew the fans were excited, and from all accounts, the coach, very honest that his team is as well. Now, listen, a lot of the talk was about tonight's game and about a certain number of players, but right off the bat, there's a lot of questions to Bones about how he's gotten this hockey team to this spot in the season, considering the mess that he came into in the offseason. And here's Bones on what he was trying to change when he was hired as coach of the Winnipeg Jets.
We just noticed when you look at analytics how many grade A's they gave up in the front of the net, and we've tried very hard to clean that up. There's been some games where we haven't been as good, and Montreal comes to mind, but for the most part we've cut down on the grade A's in front of our net, which we try to do. we're giving up probably some more outside shots than we're happy with, but we're willing to do that as long as we're protecting the front of the net and not giving them those rebounds and walking right down the middle of downtown to get those grade A's. So that's going to happen against really good teams, and it's going to be happening when you're just off your game a little bit. But for the most part, we put a lot of focus on that.
All right, Bones, certainly it was obvious to everyone that watched this club last year that need to tighten up the defense, get better, especially in front of the net. And for the most part, some games notwithstanding, the team has done that. And they'll certainly need to do that against Marner Matthews and the high-octane Leafs coming up tonight. Bones also talked about the importance of communication with players and how he has done that right from the get-go when he got the job and how that's affected the performance of the club so far.
I've always put a lot of focus on that from the first day I got into coaching a long time ago. We won't go there. But that's always been very, very important to me. And I always said when I retired as a player, I got into coaching, I was going to coach the way I wanted to be coached. And communication was a big part. Back in when I played, the communication between a coach and especially a borderline player like me wasn't very good. And I was determined to get in when I got into coaching that I would make sure that never happened. And again, you're having tough conversations with players sometimes in which they don't want to hear some of the things you're saying, but it's better to be said and be clear with your message than to keep it inside and have a gray area with the players. So this is what I do. I just communicate. I talk to the players as much as I can. When I see something I don't like, we immediately address it so it doesn't become a bigger issue, and we certainly give them all kinds of positive feedback as well.
All right, so there's Rick Bowness on a little bit of the job that he's done communicating with players. And here's another interesting one from Bones. That he was essentially asked, why has everything that he's done this year worked so well with this hockey club?
It goes back to the players buying in. You got to remember, our players are very proud, and they were very disappointed how last season went, and they wanted to put that behind them, and they wanted changes. So we gave them changes, and they wanted more of a voice in the locker room. We gave that to them. We gave them a couple of changes in the way they play. But the biggest thing is that they were hurt by how they were perceived last year in terms of the culture. They were hurt by their play, and so they give the players all the credit because they came back in the training camp with the right attitude. They wanted to win. They wanted to prove last year was a one-off and that they were a much better team and a much tighter team than the perception was of last year.
All right, there's an interesting quote from Bones just on, the level of pride that this team has and how it was shaken. And listen, I mean, it goes to this man pressing all of the right buttons, but at the end of the day, it's the players that get the job done on the ice. And I think he touched the right buttons with those players as far as challenging them to be better. But also a lot of it started inside. And those players, the star players of the Winnipeg Jets, of course, were front and center today as well. And Remo, we're going to get to some of this. It is funny, though, hearing Rick talk about that. And again, we've spoken so much about this on this program. I mean, on a daily basis, as we've seen it game after game after game. But the fact that Rick Bowness is able to talk about this now into the second half of the season with the Jets in first place in the West, it really does speak to the job that he's done, but also credit where credit is due. It isn't just one guy coming in and turn this around. Everyone has bought in. I think every Winnipeg Jet has done more to be a great teammate and to be part of a good team as opposed to a good individual this season.
Yeah, and you have to wonder if, they were only able to have such a great year this year because last year was so bad. Yes, it was the fuel to the fire. They didn't want to have a repeat and give you that internal motivation. Hey, we need to be better this year. Because before the season, wasn't there conversations, that they made these additions on defense, so they already had the division locked up, and Wheeler's said before, paper doesn't mean shit or something like that.
Yeah, I believe that was the quote.
Was that the quote? And
he was very correct on that.
And he was very correct. So I think, because, it was so bad, they have been able to rebound and use that as fuel. They also, you look at this roster, it's so talented. I mean, there's so many players. I mean, they put out this power play now with Connor, Ehlers, Dubois, Scheifele, Morrissey. I mean, these are all all-star caliber players, if you ask me. They can all have elite shots and can pretty much score from just about anywhere, most of them. So, I mean, this is a good team. I don't know what happened last year, but Rick Bowness has come in and pushed all the right buttons, and everyone is having a career. And it's great that, center of Canada, or the media center of Canada, is now finally having to talk about it because they're visiting.
Well, and the funny thing is we talked about Rick Bowness on a grand scale, talking about how disappointing last season was, challenging the players to buy in and be better, and getting the results they've done so far this season. On a micro scale, I think we can say the exact same thing about Tuesday night in Montreal, how disappointing that was, and a real challenge to come up and be better. And hopefully that will turn the Winnipeg Jets into the team that humbled the Pittsburgh Penguins for 60 minutes last Friday in Pittsburgh when they dropped the puck tonight. One guy that isn't having a career year is Nikolai Ehlers, only because he's been injured for most of the year. But man, since he's back, has he been effective and exactly the guy we all expected. 13 points in 9 games so far for Nikolai Ehlers, who, as we mentioned, looks to be starting the game with Mark Scheifele and Morgan Barron. But Bones talked about Ehlers, how he's gotten up to speed after the injury and his contributions as of late for Winnipeg.
No, he's missed a significant amount of time. We didn't expect him to step in and be 100%. I spent some time with him this morning and some video and things. He's got elite speed. And again, he's one of those players. A lot of players have elite speed, but they have to slow up a second and make the pass or make the shot. Nick doesn't. He can make high-end plays and high-end shots at full speed. So the rest of the game, you get rusty with your reads and your timing and responsibilities, and that's what we're working with him. So he's where we thought he'd be after missing the significant amount of time that he did.
There's Bones on Ehlers, Scheifele, and Barron starting off tonight's game. And listen, we'll talk about the lines, talk about the defense pairings, but as we all know, it starts with the guy in the blue paint. Connor Hellebuck's been brilliant right out of the gate and throughout the season for the most part, with the odd exception. He'll be in the net tonight, and Bones talked about his goaltender to the assembled media this morning.
In my first conversation with Connor, I did tell him that we're going to try to make life a lot easier for you and cut down on those grade A's. Now, again, we're willing to give up some outside shots to improve what's going on in front of him, but I think he'd be better to tell you than I am that, the difference between last year and this year, I wasn't around. All I know is we're trying to make life a lot easier for him. He doesn't have to make the grade A saves 15, 20 times a night, and I think we've done a significant job of that, as I'd mentioned, but he would give you a better answer in what's going on in front of him.
There's so many guys in that sort of that don't go into that 50, 60 range anymore in terms of goalies, but if you're giving them less work during the games, do you feel more comfortable playing them more games?
Yes. One thing we do, and work very close with Wade Flaherty, our goalie coach, is we give them managing the schedule of not only the goalie but your whole team, but with the amount of games that we play today is a significant part of our job. So I work very close with Wade on making sure that Connor gets he gets the proper amount of rest and the proper amount of work, so you're not getting too much time off. But if we can cut down on the quality of chances and the workload when he's playing, it's a lot easier to give him those days off and help him recover for the next time. But he's a workhorse, and if you ask him, he'd want to play every night. And but we're not going to let that happen. Not yet.
Yeah, well, he's not playing every night, but he sure as hell's in the net tonight going up against the Toronto Maple Leafs. Of course, you speak of Connor Hellebuck. That's Rick Bowness, Winnipeg Jets head coach. And Remo, we were just saying off air, this sort of feels like a season update, if you will, on the entire hockey club, with a lot of people getting their first chance to see the Jets in person and talk to a guy which should be at or at least near the top of the Jack Adams conversation in Rick Bowness. And Hellebuck has been the guy for a long time. Josh Morrissey has turned into the guy and one of the top defensemen in the National Hockey League this year. And wasn't surprising at all that there were a few questions about Morrissey. Here's what Bones had to say to the Toronto media about 44 on the blue line.
He's having a career year, and just as I told him when I talked to him in the summer, I remember coming in with Dallas and being very impressed with him, that his elite skating and his hockey IQ and his skills. So when we had that conversation, I said, we're going to get you back to that player that I remember coaching against and pre-scouting against. And he's got the green light offensively to go lead the rush, jump in on the forecheck. Like, he's such an elite skater. He can forecheck and he can still be the first guy back. But I trust him against the best players in the league, and he's having a career year, and he will keep getting better.
All right, so there's Rick Bowness on the Jets. All-star Josh Morrissey on the blue line. Mark Scheifele. I don't Cole Perfetti's going to have a lot of friends and family there. Scheif will as well, being another Ontario guy. And, of course, we all remember Scheifele's locker room chant, "There's nothing like beating the Leafs." Well, Rick Bowness talked about 55 and a great season so far with quite a bit of goal scoring from the Jets center.
Sorry, I labeled this one wrong, Huss. This was actually about Dubois' great season. My bad.
Pierre-Luc Dubois. Obviously, we know he's been rolling with Kyle Connor throughout the year. Here's what Bones had to say on big number 80 in the middle.
I'd say the biggest difference is that he's become a very solid two-way player. I think his defensive play is underestimated and overlooked. Yeah, he's putting up numbers that show he's on pace for a career year, and that's great. But more importantly to our team is what he's doing without the puck. You watch him in our zone, he's big, he's heavy, he gets back, he takes pride in that. So he's become a real 200-foot player, a real solid defensive player. So the numbers that you're seeing, we're happy with, and we expect to see those, but we love seeing the improvement in his play without the puck.
All right, so there's a little bit of Bones on Dubois. All right, let's get to tonight's game, though. I mean, there was a lot of catch-up by a lot of people there on what the Jets have done through 45 games, focusing on game number 46 tonight in Toronto. Bones spoke about the injuries and how his lineup looks going into puck drop this evening.
Stanley would be the closest. Right? Gus is just skating today for the first time. Mason is still a ways away, but I would say Logan is the closest guy.
So what's the thought process of putting Cole Perfetti with two big guys?
We'll see how long that lasts. No, it's just no. But
is the lineup going to be the lines?
We'll see. In other words, I'm not answering your question. I know what I want to do. No, just to give it a different look. We're on the road. We don't get last line change. Give him some big physical guys that can help him defensively. And help him protect the puck in the ozone, give him a little extra room. So we'll take a look at that.
All right. I had to laugh. And I mean, we had said this yesterday. We'll see how long these lines go. And Bones was the first one to say, I don't know, Remo, what is the over-under on how long these lines, like, will these lines be intact at the beginning of the second period?
No, there's no chance. Like 2 shifts max. Like, what? I don't know. What do you think? They got Perfetti, Lowry, Metalainen. Like, I don't think that's lasting.
Listen, I think it all depends on how things go. I mean, usually when you're shaking your lines up, things aren't going that well. I would hope that maybe they will get off to a good start. By the way, shout out to Brady in chat. Brady, game over Winnipeg. I know they're going to have the Don, Steve Dangalon, the CEO, with them on their post-game show tonight. Good luck with that. Check that out if you haven't seen it yet. So these are the lines. I really think that there's some real potential with Wheeler playing with Connor and Dubois. And Scheifele and Ehlers, we know, Reem, is the combination that I think can work. I guess the big question is, it could be as simple as just a swap of Barron and Perfetti after a few shifts to see how things are going. Certainly, I mean, I think Barron and the way he's playing brings something that Perfetti doesn't to that line. And certainly Rick Bowness isn't telling us exactly why he's thinking of that move. But I wouldn't at all be surprised to see Perfetti, as you mentioned, get some more ice time in that top 6 and maybe hopefully send all of his friends and family home happy, even though they're probably mostly Leaf fans for life.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I could see them keeping Connor, Dubois, Wheeler, and just swapping Barron, Perfetti. I think they like the Barron Lowry combo and Barron, Lowry, Menelaine, and that is a big, strong third line. And Perfetti, Scheifele played pretty well before. Maybe you're a bit small there with Perfetti and Ehlers on the wing, but Ehlers is so good. You hope that he has the puck in the offensive zone the whole time anyway. Maybe, I don't know. Some people are saying in chat like 20 minutes. They make it last, but we'll see. It's, his laugh there. Bones doesn't laugh too often when talking about the lines. So it leads me to believe that they were kind of just screwing around and seeing what worked, and maybe they'll give it a go here, and they're not afraid to switch back to what worked against Pittsburgh. Speaking of
go ahead.
I was gonna say, speaking of Pittsburgh, they lost to Ottawa yesterday. Maybe they're this win against Pittsburgh not looking as good as maybe it did just with the way they play. I know they're missing Letang and have some injuries. But the Jets did play awesome.
Listen, it wasn't about. I guess it was a little bit about who they were playing, but it was about how they played. And let's face it, that game was coming off of the Buffalo game.
Yes, that's true too.
I mean, that was night and day. And I still maintain. And Rick Bowness said himself, "I'll take his word for it. Maybe their best game of the season. If only they could pull that off tonight. Wouldn't that be nice?" Remo, we'll maybe play a little bit of Perfetti later on and some more Scheifele, but let's just get number 3. I do want to get this out because, as I mentioned before, Mark Scheifele, being a Southern Ontario kid, what was it, a couple years ago, the infamous victory game. I guess that was Blake Wheeler's 1,000th game, if I'm not mistaken. The same day, the Bombers won that West Final against the Riders to send them to the Grey Cup and one of the great double headers in Winnipeg sports history. But it is a special game when kids from that area play the Leafs, and Mark Scheifele was just simply asked about tonight's matchup and how special it is for him to go up and try and pull 2 points out of downtown Toronto.
Yeah, they're a fantastic team. They've been awesome this year, even with the injuries that they've had, and we got to be ready. They're playing well. Obviously, anytime you get to play the Leafs is fun, and to get to play in Toronto in front of friends and family is always great. So, hopefully we can have a good showing tomorrow.
Last time you beat these guys, I think in the dressing room they posted that video. Nothing better than beating the Leafs guys. Why does it feel? What is it about the rivalry that makes it feel that way?
I think for me, a kid in Kitchener. A lot of Leafs fans, so I think that's what it is for me. Obviously they get a lot of attention, nationally, and rightfully so. They have a lot of fantastic players that are fun to watch. But for me, it's a Kitchener kid. An hour down the road, I always get my friends and family to come to the game, and to beat the Leafs, it feels great. Obviously, every win feels great, but to beat a team that a lot of my buddies root for is a good feeling.
There you go. Great stuff from Mark Scheifele on what has turned into a little bit of a rivalry, although only playing a couple times a season in the regular calendar. It makes these games that much bigger, although I think we would all agree would be nice to add a little bit more Canadian content into the schedule, even for teams in opposite conferences. Amazingly, we've gone through a half hour talking about all these games with almost a minimal mention of Kyle Connor. And we're going to get to Kyle Connor in a minute, but we do have some breaking news. We had some fun with Paul Maurice's post-game quotes yesterday on the program. And Remo, apparently the hand of justice from the National Hockey League has slapped Pomo on the wrist.
Shout out to Lyndon in chat who tipped us off here. The NHL PR tweeting out that Florida Panthers head coach Paul Maurice has been fined $25,000 for comments about officiating during media availability following yesterday's game in Toronto on Tuesday. They announced the money will go to the NHL Foundation. I guess the coaches don't have a union to limit fines to like $5,000.
I was just about to say.
It's amazing. Like you can punch a guy in the head or cross check him in the back of the head.
2,500.
Yeah, 2,500 fine. Oh, say something that's probably justified about the officiating. 25. They'll throw the book at you 25,000. If only they had those fines for players. Holy crap! That is.
Can we get comment from Francois Saint Laurent on this fine, please, right now?
Yeah.
To WST.
Yeah. Here's
the great rivalry in the NHL: Pomo and Francois Saint Laurent. That goes back many years. We hit on that yesterday on the program. But as I said, we haven't talked a lot about Kyle Connor, and unfortunately, not enough people outside of Winnipeg have been talking about Kyle Connor. That seems to be changing, though. John Matisz of The Score has got a great piece at thescore.com. We're going to have him on the program with us in just a second. Before we do that, though, folks, I know it's beautiful outside right now. The cold is coming, though. I hate to tell you. Is your car ready for it? Well, you better have a good battery that's going to get you through this Manitoba winter, even though it's been pretty nice so far. And Manitoba Battery is there for you if you need a new one. If you're wondering if your battery's going to last through it, pop by, get a free test. It'll be quick and easy. Donnie's amazing staff at Manitoba Battery will do that for you. And if you need one, you can get one at the best price in town right there at Manitoba Battery, and be confident that you won't be that guy calling a buddy for a boost or a tow later on. And if you're at home knowing that you need a battery, save time, save money, shop local with Manitoba Battery. All you need to do is give them a call or go online and order at manitobabattery.com by 3 p.m. and they'll deliver it to you citywide the same day. Pretty easy. They're the battery experts at Manitoba Battery, a great local company, saving you time and money at manitobabattery.com, or give them a call for all of your battery needs. Big shout out to our friends at Consolidated Supply. I was going to make a golf course joke because, of course, we know how much Consolidated Supply does in the golf industry as the club car dealer and, making artificial putting greens in backyards, artificial turf, irrigation, because, of course, the Jets are playing the Maple Leafs that know a thing or two about golfing. But I will refrain from that and just remind you that if you are thinking about a great project or improving your property, landscaping, or your backyard, Consolidated Supply is the place to go. In addition to everything they do in the golf world, they've also got hot tubs, outdoor kitchens, and more. It's all there on their website at cte.ca. Your best bet might be to pop down, see Joe Spicy and the gang. They are open to the public, 1395 Niagara Road East, or check Consolidated Supply out online, as I mentioned, at their new relaunched website at cte.ca. Nominations still open for our Unsung Hero with Josh Morrissey and our friends at Wallace & Wallace. We're looking for you, Winnipeg Sports Talk listeners, to tell us about Winnipeggers and Manitobans making a difference in their community through volunteerism, spending their time, whether it be time, money, in charitable causes, or helping out within the school program, minor hockey, and other sports programs. We know there's so many people that selflessly give so much of their time without expecting anything back. We want to recognize some of those people, and our unsung hero for each month will get an autographed Jets jersey from all-star defenseman Josh Morrissey, and Wallace & Wallace is going to donate $500 to the Dream Factory, of which Josh is a spokesperson for, in the name of the Winnipeg Sports Talk listener that nominated the unsung hero, and Josh and Margot Morrissey are going to match that to make it an even $1,000. So send us your nominations for the unsung hero in your community at unsunghero@winnipegsportstalk.com. And just before we get to John Matisz, of course, it is nice outside, but people still dealing with the flu, cold, sore throats. The best thing you can do is be proactive. Get on down to Vita Health Fresh Market. Talk to the experts there about some great immunity products and the best selection of natural supplements, groceries, and more available at a great locally owned company that's been doing it for over 70 years. And, with flu season here and people battling those colds and sore throats, the hottest product that we get rave reviews in the chat every time I mention it is Colflex Oregano Spray, made locally by Initech Nutrition. You can pick it up at Vita Health Fresh Market and hopefully be as close to 100% as possible throughout this season. Vita Health Fresh Market also has some great non-alcoholic beverage options if you're celebrating a sober January, and some great vegan and plant-based products for people doing Veganuary. Vita Health Fresh Market, 7 Winnipeg locations, including the newest store in Linden Ridge, and you can check out everything they've got going on their fully shoppable website online at myvita.ca. All right, Rewucki coming up. We'll get hyped for the game tonight with Jesse Pollock of BarDown. But right now, let's welcome in John Matisz from The Score to talk a little bit about tonight's game and the National Hockey League's most underappreciated star, Kyle Connor. John, it's great to have you on Winnipeg Sports Talk. How are you?
I'm doing well, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Big game field tonight, I'm sure, around your area right now. I mean, obviously the Leafs are always big news, but man, the resurgence of the Winnipeg Jets this season, I think, has a few more eyes maybe on the quote-unquote center of the universe tonight when these two teams drop the puck.
Well, and it's kind of nice to see, to be honest, because with Winnipeg, I mean, since they went on that playoff run, whatever, 3, 4, 5 years ago, it's been a bit of a winding road here, right? So for them to be not only in a playoff position, but pushing for that top seed in the Western Conference, that's significant. And especially while Calgary and Edmonton are sort of flailing in the wind and trying to latch on as wild card contenders, you don't want to go into the playoffs with just 2 Canadian teams, but if you will end up in that situation, I guess Toronto and Winnipeg being as proficient and prolific as they've been this season, I guess there's worse scenarios.
Well, the funny thing is, I mean, there is some suspense and there'll be some excitement and scoreboard watching and standings watching in the West. We can pretty much put playoff tickets on sale right now for a first round matchup between the Leafs and the Lightning again. I'm not sure that's great for the market or for the National Hockey League, but that's where things are right now, certainly for the blue and white.
Well, it makes the last 30 something games of the season a bit of a drag. And I also wonder though, and this is more interesting than not interesting, is how does this affect the deadline as far as what Toronto does? Like, are they zeroed in on Tampa and we need to game plan to beat Tampa? Or are they thinking more big picture? Let's not worry about Tampa. Let's worry about ourselves and maybe even worry more about Boston. And then on the other side, does Tampa look over at Toronto and go, how do we beat Toronto? Because even though they're this juggernaut that's built a dynasty, essentially, they can't take their foot off the pedal. So I think the deadline will really be fascinating from the perspective of both those teams.
Well, and the funny thing about the Leafs is, and I mean, I think everyone realizes this, they're only going to be measured by what happens in the postseason. I mean, the regular season is almost an afterthought, fairly or unfairly. And for a guy like Kyle Dubas, he will be judged on whether they can get out of the first round. If they lose again, even to a great team after a good season, you probably will see some significant changes. So while normally you're planning for the long haul in the 2 months, I wouldn't be surprised if Kyle Dubas spent a little bit more time focusing on who they'll likely be playing in that first round.
Well, and at some point you got to go fully all in, right? They have made these deadline deals, Nick Foligno, that didn't work out. A couple of other guys over the past few years, but it's enough waiting, enough sort of limiting yourself to only players who have multiple years on their contract. I know it's a really good draft, and parting ways with a 2023 first rounder is difficult, but with the core that you have and Matthews nearing extension territory, you're running out of time. You're running out of runway. And it all sort of happened pretty quickly. I mean, I guess, if you talk to Leafs fans, maybe it's been excruciatingly long, but there was a time when, Tavares had just joined the fold, these young guys had just signed their extensions. Well, guess what? Those extensions are nearing the end. So this year is just monumentally important. And honestly, if they get past the first round, if we're being realistic, Dubas probably keeps his job, just because you've moved that needle forward. It's sad that that's the bar with the amount of talent they have on their roster, but that's probably what's going to be the case. And I think it's possible that they win a round. I mean, they have to at some point.
Listen, they are
the
so
law
good.
of averages, right?
I'll say this as well. If you're talking about extending Matthews and keeping guys around, might be nice to mix in a small bit of postseason success before that happens as well.
Yes.
That being said, before people go nuts in the chat, we're actually not here to talk about the Leafs. We're here to talk about the Jets. And credit to you, John, for being one of the few people outside of the market who's been paying attention to the Winnipeg Jets and noticing what our guy Kyle Connor has done. If you go to thescore.com right now under the NHL section, the piece is called In Appreciation of Kyle Connor, the NHL's perennially overlooked star. Listen, there's a lot of star power in this game tonight and in the league right now. but I have to agree. We know him very well here. He's been getting people out of their seats for years, scoring at an incredible rate. But he isn't well known around the National Hockey League, and you touched on that in your piece in The Score.
Yeah, it's really one of those things where, just to give you some background on how I approached this story, was I get these reports from Sportlogic, and they run through, cycle chances, forecheck chances, rush chances, et cetera. And he would, be sprinkled in the top 15. And I'm like, okay, Connor's having another good year. The goals haven't been up to his normal standard, but he's still producing us. And then I would look over to the primary assists, and he's tied for 7th, right now with Josh Morrissey of all people in the entire league at basically a half a primary assist a game. And I'm going, does anyone ever talk about his playmaking? I would say no. And then I go, does anyone ever talk about Kyle Connor, period, outside of Winnipeg? And the answer is basically no, right? So that just got me the wheels turning, if you will, in my head. And went down to Buffalo last week and talked to some Jets players, talked to Rick Bowness, and got a feel for, what their perspective is on Kyle Connor and why he's overlooked. Just dug into exactly what he's done. I mean, he ranks 6th amongst all NHLers since his first full season, 2017-18, in goals. That's phenomenal. I mean, who's ahead of him? Ovechkin, Matthews, McDavid, Draisaitl, Pasternak. Okay, those are absolute studs, superstars every day of the week. And then it's Connor, and then after Connor, Stamkos, McKinnon, Rantanen, Tavares, DeBrincat. So aside from DeBrincat, we can leave him out of the conversation because he's at the end. But of the other 9, Connor is kind of the odd man out as far as name recognition across the league, as far as just kind of, if you were walking down the street and asking a random fan, who's part of this top 10, I think they'd leave out Connor. And I'm not saying he should be part of this, top class of offensive stars, Matthews, McDavid, et cetera. But I think he should be in that second tier. And I feel like he's treated like he's either in the third or fourth tier.
Well, I'll tell you what, he's pushing that top tier. I mean, and you saw the goal. I mean, last year flirting with 50 goals. And this year it's been really interesting, John, in that, you said the goals weren't there. They certainly weren't at the start. He started off with only 2 goals in his first 14 games, but at the same time was still being very dangerous, was still being productive, was still helping his team win. And then it was almost like a dam. You knew it was going to break. And right now, at times, he is like a shark in the water where you see the blood coming. You almost know that red light is going to be turned on. And, the momentum that he and the team has had, especially going into a game tonight where people in Toronto will actually be paying attention to the Winnipeg Jets, and that includes most of the national and the hockey media. This is a huge opportunity to sort of remind people many of those numbers that you just mentioned. And of course, he's just coming off his 200th goal, which he scored against the Montreal Canadiens. So I'm not sure that this team, I mean, to call it a coming out party would maybe be a little ridiculous considering he has 200 goals. He's done all of the things. However, he, in a lot of ways, represents his team. I think a lot of people, maybe they weren't expecting this. It kind of caught them by surprise, and all of a sudden they're here.
No, I think that's actually a really good way to frame it, is Kyle Connor being the representative. And obviously there's some tremendous success stories on the Jets this year. Morrissey, as I mentioned, with the amount of points he's putting up and just being unleashed, if you will, by Rick Bowness. That's been really fun to watch. Connor Hellebuyck in the conversation for the Vezina Trophy. So even in this year where you look at Connor and go, okay, time to give this guy a little bit of a shine, there's 2 other guys that are kind of overshadowing him. And I think that's part of the reason why he hasn't, we'll say, popped across the league as far as getting that notoriety. There used to be Dustin Byfuglien, Patrick Laine, and then obviously Scheifele, Wheeler, Ehlers. All these guys, in one way or another, have distracted us from Kyle Connor. With Byfuglien, it's the personality and the big hits. With Laine was a shot and the personality, and just sort of a soap opera of sorts in some ways in terms of him being injured or on or off or cold or hot. So that's, I think, affected it too. And then also Connor, there's a few things about him that I think are very unassuming. I mean, you talk to anyone that knows him on a personal level, and they'll say like pretty basic guy, chill, like he's not overly serious, but he's also not overly goofy. He just kind of is there as far as, being a good guy, but not this, off the wall personality. And then also, if you see him on the ice, he kind of just blends into the action as far as his body type, right? I mean, he's not tiny, but he's not this imposing guy. And he's put on some muscle since being drafted. But if you stand next to him, he's still like, just a guy that's really in really good shape. He's not hulking. He's not imposing. So I find that might factor into it as well. And then one thing that's, I half jokingly mentioned in the story is his name. I mean, Kyle Connor, it's like a John Smith equivalent. So maybe just as something as simple as his name doesn't catch your attention in the same way as, I don't know, Kyle Matisz, just to use my name. Like people would go, oh, Matisz, I've never heard that name before. Kyle Connor, you go, oh, I know Connor McDavid, or, I know that those are both first names, but like it just doesn't register as this name that'll stick in your head.
He's not even the only Connor on his own team. I mean, we often talk about the Connor and Connor show when Hellebuck and Kyle Connor are making it happen. But well, let's just say that I guess what was it, 20 years ago or 20 odd years ago, Connor was must have been at the top of the hot names in the baby books for hockey parents, because there's a lot of them right now. And listen, some of them getting more headlines than the guy wearing 81 for Winnipeg.
Absolutely. And another thing that I tried to relay in the piece is, even though he has these flashy elements to his game, I mean, he's incredibly fast. I mean, arguably a top 10 speedster in the game, in the league. And he's got this wicked wrist shot. Like, again, another elite part of his skill set. The rest of his game is pretty subtle. So he's a really good forechecker. That's what a few people brought up to me. And it's not forechecking in the sense that he's going in there and banging and crashing. I mean, he's one of the least physical players on the Jets, but he's so fast that he wins those foot races. And then if he doesn't win the foot race, he's very good at stripping pucks and won't take penalties, right? I mean, he won the Lady Byng last year. So he's got that going on. He's got a good give and go game and a cycle game. Again, kind of boring things, especially for a guy who's not big. So I think that also factors in. And one final thing is he's not great defensively. So you're not hearing him sort of being trumpeted as a two-way guy like, Pierre-Luc Dubois. Part of the reason why he pops off the page when you watch him is the size, the strength, the attitude, and also he can play both, forward and defense at a very high rate. So it's just interesting how this sort of cornucopia of reasons lead to a guy being overlooked, even though when you go to the stats, you're like, there's no chance in hell this guy should be overlooked, especially when you look at stuff like game-winning goals. As you guys know, I mean, he broke the Jets record, set a new record for the Jets Thrashers organization. And then also he's third in game-winning goals since that first full season, 2017-18, in the entire league. So it's not just, he happens to be scoring the game-winning goals for the Jets. It's like, no, he scores a lot in general.
Yeah, he's got 8 already this season, which is just wild. And you mentioned Dubois. They are, in a lot of ways, one of the most interesting combinations. Since they've been together, there's been very few combinations of two players in the league that have been more successful. Dubois is Canadian. Connor's a Yank. Dubois is this big, bruising guy. Kyle Connor's a little smaller, certainly has all the speed, but, man, together they've just been magic. And, if people haven't been watching the Winnipeg Jets, they're going to get a chance tonight because I'm sure the Jets will want to have their best foot forward after an ugly game in Montreal and a real chance to maybe open up some eyes to what Rick Bowness and this squad has done so far this season. John Matisz, we will look forward to more from you, opening people's eyes on the best in the West right now. And, of course, Kyle Connor over at thescore.com. This is a lot of fun. Let's do this again sometime.
Thanks for having me on, Andrew. And yeah, you're giving me ideas. Maybe I'll do a deep dive on the Jets, the team, sometime soon, because they put together a pretty impressive first half, and it doesn't look like they're going to slow down. It looks legit. So,
well, I'll look forward to that, and we've got the spot already booked for you to come back on Winnipeg Sports Talk and talk about it. Have a great one, my friend. Thanks for doing this.
Cheers, guys.
All right, good stuff. Talking KFC with John Matisz of The Score. Give him a follow on Twitter. You can check out more of his work covering the National Hockey League over at thescore.com. All right, Rewucki is just finishing, his team of stylists just finishing his look for today. He'll be joining us in just a moment. Got to give a shout out to our friends at Royal Sports. Hey, if you're heading out to BP or somewhere to watch the game with friends tonight, it's a big one. Maybe you pop into Royal Sports on the way and upgrade that Jets gear. Just thousands of pieces of Winnipeg Jets merchandise, much more than just Jets, though. The best NHL section you will find anywhere. Bomber gear, tons of NFL merchandise, and all the greatest sports. And, of course, they are the hockey superstar. But it's not just for elite players. I mean, if you have a hockey player in your family, you can get everything you need at Royal Sports. But for those of you that just want to get out and take in what Winnipeg winter has to offer, i.e. getting on the skate trail, you're definitely going to want to pop in and see some of their more affordable skate options. For those of you that just want a casual pair of blades to jump on the river and enjoy the winter with friends, Royal Sports really does have it all. Book a little bit of time off and spend it at Royal Sports, 750 Pembina Highway, and make sure to follow them on Instagram at Royal Sports Pembina for all their latest merchandise drops and sale information. As far as wardrobe, I mean, obviously you got to have your Jets gear, but for real life stuff, guys, if you're thinking about upping your wardrobe game, only one place to do that. That's F Apparel downtown. Custom suits for men beginning at just $400. Many of those great looks you see the Jets rolling into the arena with on Jets social media come from Andrew and his gang at F Apparel. The entire process is simple and easy. Remis and I have both done it a couple times, and man, they make a great product. So, guys, if you need a better wardrobe, F Apparel's there for you. And don't forget, if you're in a wedding party for the upcoming year, don't waste your money renting tuxes. Talk to Andrew and the gang about great custom suits. The entire wedding party will get 15% off the entire order when you get your outfitted in suits, shirts, and ties. And if you got a high school grad in the family, it's a big, big day as they move on from their school years. A free custom shirt and tie with any grad suit purchase. Savings about $150. All there at F Apparel. Pop down and see them, 190 Smith Street downtown. Check them out or make an appointment online at that's EPHapparel.com. And as I mentioned, you might want to get a little bit extra Jets gear for the game tonight down at a Boston Pizza. I'm getting together with the big crew of the fellas at BP tonight for the game. No better place to watch the Jets and Leafs. Big screen, big sound, big beers, delicious wings. That is what it's all about. Maybe we'll get into that spicy jalapeno popper dip too, which is one of my new favorites on the menu as well. And hey, if you're staying at home or you can't make it out, the next best thing is to get to bostonpizza.com and order online. Big thanks to the Boston Pizza crew for their support of WST. All right. Let's welcome in my guy, the host of Skates and Plates, Brendan Rewucki. Rew, what's going on? I see your six stylists have just made it to the back just in time.
Yeah, I don't need the hair dryer. That's fine, thanks. Yeah, no, I'm doing good. Doing good, man. Excited. Big game tonight. Excited to be on.
Yeah, me too. And I'll tell you what. I mean, listen, I don't want to spend almost any time talking about the game on Tuesday night because it was eminently forgettable. Overall, though, this team has played very, very well over the course of this season. But you could tell today, just with Rick Bowness speaking for about 11 minutes, that a ton of the national media that don't see this hockey club very often had a lot of questions about how they got to this point and the players that have brought them to that point. And got to tell you, you want to bounce back from a rough game in Montreal, perfect opportunity to do it. And no brighter lights in the league that the Winnipeg Jets will get for this challenge against a very, very good Toronto Maple Leafs team. I think there's a reason why everyone's excited about it, other than just going up against an original six team that Winnipeg fans love to beat as much as anyone.
Yeah. Well, and I'm a little surprised, to be honest, that we're not hearing more about this being the Battle of Canada. Like, it's the two best teams in Canada right now, and it kind of feels like that's being pushed under the radar for some reason. Right? Like I'm a little surprised by that. But hey, look, the Jets, even when they were playing very inconsistently, they always show up for this one, right? Like that's never really been a concern, I don't know what the win-loss record's been in Toronto over the past few years, but I know that this team comes out and they play their asses off. So I think we're in for a beauty here. I don't think we're getting a repeat of what we saw out there in Montreal. And look, the track record of this team all year has been the same. They have a stinker. It doesn't turn into 2, 3, or 4. It's usually a one-off, and I expect a hell of a matchup tonight. It's going to be a beauty.
You know, and Remis, by the way, great graphics, new graphic package for WST, and you can see how close these are. Don't be fooled. The Jets are actually 2.46 goals against a game. That was a decimal place. They're not giving up 24 a game.
It's on the Maurice days, man.
Yeah. But actually, Remo, throw that back up, though, because, I mean, it's a great example of just how close these teams are in so many of the metrics. And we're not talking about a 10-game sample. This is the season so far. Very close in goals for per game, 3.29 for the Jets, 3.38. And that number for Winnipeg down to 2.46 goals against a game. Really the biggest reason why they are where they are in the standings. But the Leafs, to their credit, have been doing a pretty good job at holding off. Power plays almost identical, 24-6, 24-8. And that Jet PK number at 84.3, incredibly important for a game like tonight against a team that can throw out those sort of weapons. It really is a great matchup, Brandon, for all the reasons that we talked about and what you mentioned. Maybe get a little bit of a bragging rights for being the top team in Canada up until this point, as the Jets are just 2 points back of the Leafs with the same games number of played.
Yeah, and I really do think that the penalty kill has been maybe the most underrated part of this team so far. It was third going into the game against Montreal, so they're in and around top 5 on the PK right now. I mean, special teams as a whole has been great. But, I mean, Toronto's been consistently a really, really elite regular season team for a few years now. And I think that bodes well that the Jets kind of stack up toe-to-toe against them. And if you go roster to roster here, you know, it's really comparable. I mean, up front, you know, even down the middle, right? I mean, Matthews, you'd probably give an edge over either Scheifele or Dubois, but you probably give an edge for either Scheifele or Dubois over Tavares. The wingers are pretty similar in terms of what they're able to do, and they both got depth players played at an extremely high rate right now. On the back end, I think the Leafs have more depth, but nobody out there in Toronto is doing what Josh Morrissey is doing right now. So, I mean, like the skaters between the two clubs are very, very similar in terms of how these teams are built. Obviously, the big difference between the two clubs is 37, much greater than Samsonov and Murray right now. And it's been a bit of a struggle over these past, I think, 4 or 5 games for the two netminders when they were playing really, really well through the end of December there. So if you're talking about best team in Canada right now, I think skaters-wise, they're both pretty similar, but you definitely give the edge Hellebuck over whoever's going to be in net for Toronto tonight. So, yeah, we're talking about the best team in Canada playing the Maple Leafs in Toronto.
Yeah, I mean, listen, you'll give the nod on goaltending to Winnipeg, but at the same time, I mean, 2.62 goals against per game for Winnipeg, 2.67 for Toronto. It pretty much is a wash. Yeah. But we are seeing, I think, the regression to the mean of the two Toronto goalies who did have that great start, and both were flirting with 930. As you mentioned, sort of earlier in December, and Matt Murray got lit up for 4 on 8 in the last game, and Samsonov came in. There you see Hellebuck's brilliant numbers so far coming into tonight's game with a .924 save percentage and 3 shutouts so far, 22 wins on the season through 34 games. It's a different look for the lines right off the bat, and I'm not sure if you saw at the beginning of the program, we were talking and hearing from Rick Bowness, who sort of laughed when they asked how long these lines would be together. And he said, well, we'll see. But I am interested in your thoughts on, let's start off with the top. I mean, listen, I think Blake Wheeler's pretty much versatile enough that is probably a fine addition to that connection of Connor and Dubois, who've been great, really, regardless of who they played against. But what do you think about Morgan Barron starting off the game with Scheifele and Ehlers? And I guess then we'll say, what does that mean for Cole Perfetti, who is in a very different unit with Lowry and Menelainen than what he's been playing with for most of the year?
Yeah, that is, it's not a great fit on that line. Like, let's just be honest, right? Like, he's with 2 mountain men, and then you've got a rookie who's, you know, we all know what his skill set is, right? It's offensive playmaker, but he's not going to, you know, take the NHL by storm by playing strong defensive hockey on a shutdown line. So, yeah, I mean, I don't think the fit's great there, but at the same time, I understand Rick Bowness saying, yeah, you know what, maybe the rookie needs to step down a little bit, because it hasn't been smooth sailing for him over the last little while. He's playing like a rookie. It's kind of what it is, right?
There's some highs, there's some lows.
Yeah.
Listen, he had that brilliant game in Pittsburgh coming off. It was like his flu game after he missed part of the game in Buffalo. The one thing, and I mentioned this yesterday, it has seemed like over the past week or so, the fact that he's gone, 13 or 14 games without a goal, that he has been getting a little bit frustrated. And maybe it's a matter of taking a bit of pressure off him right now, and give him a chance to maybe skate for a few shifts with a guy like Lowry and Menelainen, and then get back up with some elite offensive players. And maybe that takes a bit off of him, because, I think in his position, a top draft pick, a guy that has been given plenty of opportunity to produce and has been doing it overall, and the team's been winning hockey games. That's the bottom line. I think he puts a lot of pressure on himself to score and to contribute, and the goals have been hard to come by lately, and you could see him squeezing the stick a little bit.
Yeah, like it's nothing to worry about. I don't think it says anything about his long-term outlook in the NHL. Like, the kid's going to be a borderline star, right? It's just this is what 19, 20-year-olds kids do in their first season with grown men. There's good times and there's bad times, and he's having, and even his bad times, I think, are relatively minor, right? It's not like his struggles are he's getting completely overwhelmed out there and stuff like that. It's just he's not producing at an elite second line level, which is completely normal for somebody of his age. So I understand Bones wanting to maybe just drop the kid down for, I don't know, a game or two. I honestly don't think it's going to be all that long before we see him back up there on whatever iteration the second line looks like. But I also don't mind seeing Morgan Barron get a little more play up there. I thought, when he had his chance last year coming over at the deadline, I thought it looked pretty good. Like, he doesn't look out of place at the very least, playing with some skilled players up there in the top six. So
he adds a he had such a different dynamic to that line. And let's face it, that line is entirely different because, of course, Wheeler is playing with Connor and Dubois, and now it's Scheifele and Ehlers. And, this might be something that Rick Bowness has had in the back of his head a little while, as Morgan Barron has continually grown in his spot alongside Adam Lowry. And, he said before, they do like to have a little bit of size with some of the smaller, speedier players. And I'll say this, amongst all the lines that are out there tonight, I am sort of intrigued as to how Morgan Barron fits playing with Scheifele, and it'll be cool to see Scheifele and Ehlers back together. I think there's so much potential of those players. And if those guys click and you have Connor and Dubois clicking, then you get to that point where you can start spreading a little bit more onto that third line and get a little bit more pop without losing anything from a real devastating 1-2 punch in your top six.
Yeah, that's exactly it for me. Like, if you're going to have pairs, if you will, to have Dubois Connor as a pairing and then Scheifele Ehlers as a pairing, and then you can kind of mix and match which forwards go together depending on, who's hot or what the matchup might be, things like that. I'm totally down with that. I'm also down with Dubois, Connor, and Ehlers playing about 50 more games in a row together too, but this isn't a bad plan B either. What I think this does in a roundabout way for me is it kind of underlines the importance of adding whatever you want to call it, but another forward that can play in and around that second or third line. That's what I think this does for me. That and I don't know, like, it could be Appleton, it could be a trade that happens sometime coming up the deadline here, but I really do think that if you can add just one more impactful piece in there, everything slots in pretty nicely, and then you have the ability to experiment and try different things out, see what works, see what doesn't. Maybe you go back to Connor, Dubois, Ehlers, but you're not necessarily relying solely on them to create offense because you have another offensive piece that can jump up there with Mark Scheifele as well, right? So I think that's kind of what this experiment is telling me a little bit here, is one more piece to come in here would be the cherry on top. But yeah, a lot of intrigue, and I'm not going to be surprised if Morgan Barron has himself, maybe not a standout breakout night, but he shows himself out pretty well against Toronto.
You know what, Brandon? Let's talk about the deadline and potential acquisitions for a minute with the Jets, because it's always fun. We've been spending so much time talking about this game. I did want to get to this with you. There's been a number of names that have been rumored as possibly on the market that might be fits here in Winnipeg. Jonathan Toews has been one of them. And listen, I'm very intrigued on the possibility of Toews and what he brings, the versatility, the experience, the success in the faceoff dot. I had said that for a player at that point, I don't think I'd be looking to give up my first round pick, especially in this draft. Interestingly enough, hearing Elliot Friedman on 32 Thoughts say that it is believed that the ask would be a second and a third round pick. I think if that's the case, I do that right away. The caveat is I don't believe the Jets have their second rounder. So you may have to get creative. Maybe you're doing it the year afterwards. But I'm not sure whether we talked about Jonathan Toews and a potential fit here in Winnipeg. How intriguing is that to you? And what do you think he would bring to the Winnipeg Jets if they were willing to pay the Blackhawks asking price?
Yeah, I hadn't heard that. And that was always the big thing with me is it's like I'm interested in Toews, but at a certain price.
Yeah.
And look, a second and a third still sounds kind of juicy to me. But having said that, if you think he's worth it, are you going to say, no, we want 2/3 instead of you know what I mean? Like at some point you almost have to give up a little bit to get somebody that you think might be a big time asset for you. I think, I guess here's my, it's kind of twofold. I think the biggest hole on this team right now is still having a top pair quality blue liner behind Josh Morrissey to take over the second pair. To me, I'd be way more interested in moving my assets to get that guy. And I've said time and time again that I think Jacob Chychrun is the perfect fit for the Jets to go after. So if going after Toews precluded me from going after a high-end defenseman, then I would say no. But if I'm able to give up secondary assets for somebody like Jonathan Toews, who I think would be completely reinvigorated by a chance to go deep into the playoffs for the first time in 5 years at least, and to do so in his hometown, I think there's a ton of value for that. I agree with you. No, like a first round pick is not even in the discussion for Jonathan Toews, despite everything he brings. The interesting thing with him would be there's the ask and the return and everything like that. But, one of the centers is going to have to jump out to the wing, right? And would it be Scheifele? Like, would it be Toews down the middle and then Scheifele beside him? Or I don't think you'd want to put Toews out there on the wing because the thing with
Scheifele, the thing with the Scheifele line that is intriguing is that, I mean, listen, for all the hockey nerd that he is, he's just never really been a guy that you can really count on in the faceoff circle. And Toews is one of probably a top 3 faceoff guy in the entire National Hockey League. And we know what the Winnipeg Jets are with the puck, a very dangerous team. When they're chasing the puck around, I mean, that takes away from everything that you're able to do. Now, whether Toews is regularly playing on the wing, but happens to be the guy that's taking the majority of the draws, I'm not sure. The one thing I'll say about Toews, and we've seen this in the Olympics, we've certainly seen this recently, he has so much versatility. And listen, I don't know, some people value this more than others, but that is a guy that knows exactly what it takes to win games, to win series, and to go all the way. And man, there's a ton of intangibles that a guy like that would bring in that I think would really help a team with a lot of young players that have been nowhere close to the level of success that he's had in his NHL career.
Yeah. And I don't think it's just, people are going to say the young guys and think Cole Perfetti. You're telling me Mark Scheifele wouldn't pick up a thing or two? Pierre-Luc Dubois?
Exactly. Playing with them?
Basically, everybody under the age of 30, right? Like, you could point to every single guy up front there and say, like, this dude's literally won everything. There is not a tournament on earth that he has not won in hockey. And I really do think there is a ton of value that comes with that. I think, and this is one of the things I've always disagreed with analytics people about, he's a big game player, and some guys shrink in big moments and some guys step up and grab it by the throat and take it. And I think we can all agree that he's definitely the latter in terms of what happens when the going gets tough out there, especially as the postseason starts to roll along here. I'm not shying away whatsoever from a Jonathan Toews trade. I think it makes a lot of sense. It's going to come down to that price though, and I think the one thing that works in the Jets' favor, two things really, is just quite frankly, even at retained 50%, there's maybe 5 teams in the playoffs that can fit that under the cap, maybe, and that's stretching it right there. And then how many of those teams are going to be willing to pay a second or a third round? Like, I don't. If Toews does the Giroux thing and says, "Look, I'm staying in Chicago or I'm going to Winnipeg," and that's that second and a third round ask is going to drop dramatically, and that works in a big way for the Winnipeg Jets' favor there. So I'm not shying away from that. Whatever. I'm intrigued to see essentially what the checklist is for Chevy, though. If that's going to be number one, or is it going to be help on the back end instead?
Well, it's great. You mentioned Chychrun, and Chychrun's so intriguing because he is young. He has 2 more years of his contract at $4.6 million, which is eminently affordable and would fit in perfectly within the Jets salary structure. The thing about that is that your ask for a Jacob Chychrun is probably Ville Heinola, this year's first-round pick, potentially another first-round pick. That's at least what the ask will be. And that's a player that every team in the league would love to have, and every team in the league could pretty much fit under their cap. So the amount of bidders for a player like that goes up. Although we've also been hearing this conversation for a full year right now around Jacob Chychrun, and I know he was injured, but he's back, and he is certainly intriguing. Vancouver has a number of players, and I know Avco was putting up a list of some of the players that, who would Jet fans be most interested in. Connor Garland was there, certainly Bo Horvat. Bo Horvat's another guy that's had a monster year right now, but you're talking about a big ask for a player that would be coming in. And Timo Meier is another fascinating player. $6 million this year. He's not a UFA. He's an RFA. However, as Remis reminded me earlier, I believe he's got a $10 million qualifying offer. So maybe that makes him basically a UFA. Although there still is the potential to trade a player like that. When we're looking at options on the West Coast, what do you think of Meier? And is there a player in Vancouver that you think would be a nice fit for the Winnipeg Jets?
Yeah, I don't know if I want to touch a lot of what's going on out there in Vancouver. I mean, I don't like Bo Horvat as a fit here, just in terms of the ask for a rental, and that's why a guy like Chychrun makes way more sense to me. It's like, yeah, you're paying a ton, like it's you're not getting him on the cheap, but you get him for 2.5 seasons at the bare minimum,
3 playoff runs.
Yeah, 3 playoff runs, and at a really affordable salary. And then that, I mean, I've always felt like the Jets should be going after guys like that, where, hey, get a chance to come to Winnipeg, play a few seasons here, and they tend to sign more often than not. So, I mean, again, that's why Chychrun has a lot of intrigue to me. For me, giving up a first-round pick and probably a prospect too for 6 weeks of Bo Horvat, I don't want to invest too much in that. I like Connor Garland. I like his game. Cap hit, I don't know if that makes sense for the Jets either. Do you want to touch Ekman Larson with a 50-foot pole with that contract? I don't think so. I mean,
that's a hard no. That's a hard,
okay. All right.
Hard no. He was just healthy scratched. He's got another 6 or 7 years at like $8 million. It's unbelievable that is on the Canucks books for that. Just quickly, the Canucks. I'm not sure if you saw Jim Rutherford earlier this week. Like, I'll give Rutherford a lot of credit for standing up there, for answering every question, for waving the PR guys off and being there. But holy smokes, I mean, that was just basically putting gas on a fire, because if you didn't think that ownership was involved in the direction of the team, and I guess, listen, it's their team. I mean, we probably shouldn't begrudge them to do that, but it certainly seems like whoever has been running hockey operations in some ways has had one arm tied behind their back in Vancouver. And like, I don't know if there's a quick or easy way to reload as opposed to really retool a team that has already made some big contractual commitments with OEL and with JT Miller, whose extension doesn't even kick in until next summer.
Yeah, and he looks like he wants out on the first car out of Vancouver, right? Like, it's they made a very splashy entrance into the bottom half, not bottom half, the bottom 5 of most dysfunctional franchises in the NHL. Like Vancouver is there. Philly and Arizona are kind of speeding away from the pack a little bit, but Vancouver went into nitro mode, and they're not all that far behind right now. And I do feel bad for Canucks fans when I saw that quote. We're not rebuilding; it's a retool, because that's basically like you might as well just throw away the next 3 years. We're going to be having this. They've been doing that for 10 years, right? It's just that to me is the ultimate. There's maybe 1 out of 10 franchises that can say that line and then actually accomplish that feat. For the most part, though, it's, you know what, you're staring a rebuild in the face. Your fans would actually appreciate that more than trying to do the middle ground thing. Yeah, we see teams time and time again, try to delude themselves into thinking that, we're just 1 or 2 moves away from getting out of cap hell and finding a way to get back to the top of the conference here. So yeah, they're a nightmare. They're an absolute mess. I feel horrible for Bruce Boudreau, who doesn't deserve any of this crap. And the fact that they basically announced they're looking at head coaching candidates while he still has a job was beyond a slap in the face.
By the way, I was watching the Stars melt down last night in San Jose and blow that 3-0 lead. And that was, I guess, a TNT game. And they go to the panel in the intermission, and they're talking to Rick Tocchet. And he goes like, hey, I've talked to a few people going on. And I mean, I just thought Bruce Boudreau does not deserve to be done like this. You know what? If you're going to get rid of him, just get rid of him. He's a big boy. He's been fired before. But it's not fair at all to a guy that should, I think, garner more respect. And listen, if the writing's on the wall, read the writing and act on it right now. And hell, bring in an interim coach, promote one of the assistants for a few games. I mean, it's not going to make things any worse in Vancouver than they already are.
You got Travis Green on the payroll. Bring him back too, right? It's no when you're an owner and your main reason for not firing a coach is that you don't want to have too many fired coaches on the payroll. Maybe it's time to restructure how you think about building your organization.
All right, Brandon Rewucki's with us from Skates and Plates. Back to tonight's game. When it comes to the blue line, Ville Heinola is going to get back in the lineup from all accounts. And I'm not sure whether this is more that Dylan Sandberg's still not ready to go in. I did say yesterday, though, that considering how rough it was, and it certainly was not just Ville, but he maybe sort of stood out at times. I'm actually quite happy, and I think this is a great thing for him to be able to get right back into the lineup tonight. And to be honest, I think him playing with Nate Schmidt is, and like Schmidt's had a really strong season so far this year, and he can maybe handle some of that load. But from a defensive standpoint for the Winnipeg Jets, that group has been pretty good this year. They really do need to step up considering what we saw on Tuesday, and they will have their hands full with a Leafs team that can come at you in a lot of different ways. And I know we always think about Matthews and Marner. William Nylander has turned into a legit star in this league. He's sort of overlooked. He was certainly overlooked at contract time. That won't happen again. But just the challenge for the defense tonight going up against some pretty lethal scorers for the home team.
Yeah. I love it. And he was awful against Montreal. I mean, 90% of the team was, but you can't sugarcoat it when 4 of his shifts in the middle frame-ish, 3 of his 4 shifts, he's on the ice for a goal against. Not all his fault, all 3, but obviously playing a role in some of that. But there's a part of me that's kind of like, where I'm sure Bones and maybe even management is like, hey kid, you asked for a string of games, you're gonna get them, right? Like this is a real pivotal moment for him, I think. And I mean that in a good way, in the sense that, you know what, you have a bad one. In years past, you might be heading down to the Moose for 2 months after this, but no, we're like, you're gonna get another shot here. You get another crack at it, and let's see if you can rebound and be the guy that we think you could be. I think it's awesome. So he's definitely, I would say him and Barron are probably the 2 biggest spotlight guys from a Jets perspective in this one in terms of how they're able to perform. But this is, I mean, Ville had a rough one, but he can erase it pretty quickly if he goes out there against Toronto tonight and is responsible with the puck, moves it out well, gets his feet moving. I like the approach the team is taking with how they're trying to deal with an off night from Ville Heinola here.
All right, B, 2 non-hockey questions before we go. The first up is football, Final 8. best weekend of football of the year for NFL fans. Will there be an upset? And if so, who will be the team that defies the odds and moves on to the championship game? You've got the Giants, you've got the Cowboys, you've got the Jags, and you've got the Bengals.
I don't think there will be one. I think we're going to see. Well, I guess the Bills are the 2 seed over the Bengals.
The Bengals are a 5-point underdog right now. People really spooked because of the injuries on their offensive line. I'll be honest. I mean, I guess that probably limits Joe Mixon a little bit, but Von Miller's not there either. And the Bills pass rush is nothing like it was earlier in the season. And to be honest, if that just means that more goes onto the shoulders of Joe Burrow, I think Cincinnati is fine with that, to be honest with you.
I was going to say a leaky O-line. Oh no, what's Joe Burrow going to do?
Yeah, he's never seen that before.
Yeah. Uh-oh. So I don't consider it an upset, but I think Cincinnati beats Buffalo. So to answer your question, I guess if you consider that's a shocking spread to me, that many points. To me, Josh Allen's great. That Bills team has been way too turnover friendly over the past month and a half of the season. I think the Bengals are just peaking at the right time now. So I don't think it's an upset, but in the sense of a 3 seed beats a 2 seed, I do think in the AFC we get a rematch of last year's title game.
Well, I remember, we were doing the kind of the weekend recap and looking at the lines on the Lock Shop on Monday. By the way, YouTubers, go Lock Shop Bets, give us a sub and get in on that $1,000 giveaway at Lock Shop, the Lock Shop YouTube channel. And we were looking at the opening lines, and it was like 4.5. And I'm like, listen, if you like Cincy, I would get that right now because I'm expecting this game to be like a 3-point spread by the time we get to the game. And it didn't happen. It's been 5.5. It's 5. We might see it come down a little bit. But in a lot of ways, the Bengals sort of remind me of the Jets, albeit, listen, they did go to the Super Bowl last year, but they're a team in a smaller market that's got some really high, great players on it, but is sort of consistently overlooked a little bit despite all the things that they've done. And they've done it against the best teams. Listen, as a Chiefs fan, I'm scarred by them. They knocked us out of the playoffs, big win earlier this season. It really is fascinating. What about your Birds? Feeling pretty good about that game against the Giants?
Look, that's the best matchup you could have asked for, right? But having said that, the Giants did look pretty good against Midi. Like they did. I picked them to win, but they look kind of good. But I think the Vikings defense, sorry, Vikings fans, to bring this up again, I think the Vikings defense played a pretty big role in New York looking as potent as they did. And I think, even if New York is sharp on offense still, playing in Philly, playing on the road in the environment and against a much, much better Eagles defense, I think it'll be a bit more of a challenge for them. I think it'll be a close game. I don't think it's going to be a blowout by any means, but I do think Philly and San Fran take care of business at home.
All right, final question for you, and this comes from Elliot in the chat, and this really should spawn a larger collaboration between WST and Skates and Plates. Fat boys. Number one fat boy in Winnipeg for you, or if you have a top 3 already, we can accept that as well. If you're looking for the best fat boy, what comes? You've been eating in a lot of places. You're somewhat of a connoisseur. Who you got?
So what are we defining as a fat boy, though? I think that's very important in this discussion here.
Well, I think the fat boy is the typical Winnipeg Greek burger. The chili, mayo, tomato, all the ones that you would get at a Junior's, a VJ's, a George's, a Dairy Whip, a Mr. Mike's, a burger place. We can go down the list. Is there one that stands out to you?
There was one. George's on Henderson was I went to school nearby there, so that one has a pretty sentimental spot in my heart. But I got to be honest, I'm not a big chili on burgers or dogs guy. For me, it's just keep them. It's like church and state, keep them separated, please.
So
if I'm having a burger, I want a burger. If I'm having chili, I want chili. So I'll say that. But I don't think I wouldn't stretch. I wouldn't go too far away from the OGs. I think I would go VJ's and George's on Henderson as my top 2.
I do. Like the Georges are sort of hit and miss. I mean, some Georges are, I guess they're all individual, so it's hard just to say Georges. I knew the second I mentioned this would be our new why not question of the day for Not AutoCorp, and there's nothing that gets the chat going more than this. Let's see. We've got Johnny's Pizza. No, I'm not sure if that is Walter was asking a different question, but Randy, Dairy Whip hands down. Joe Marcoux, being the good St. B-boy he is, has got me on that. St. James Burgers for MC Stormy. The Georges on Nest gets one from Bruce H. Another one for Dairy Whip in the original Georges location. Mrs. Mike's on Taché. Johnny's on Marion. Yeah, I knew that there'd be a ton. Ooh, the Nook. That's an interesting one. I didn't really think about the Nook as being. Oh,
the one I
Walter
would say
says he's serious. I'm not familiar with Johnny's Pizza, but maybe we'll get a pizza and a Fat Boy when we pop by.
The best burger, hands down, and there's a lot of good ones, like everybody said out there. But like, if I had to have one and only one, like for the rest of my life, Sonia's in Lockport is like the goat of the goats. So. I gotta give love out to Sonia's there.
Have you known that place I mean, I know you're from up that area. Like, did you know it growing up and stuff?
Yeah.
Funny story. I discovered it during the pandemic. And during that time when everything was closed and I'm living in my spot, the bars are closed. No one can come over. I would basically just get in the car and sometimes drive around I know this sounds pathetic, but I would basically get to Henderson and I would just drive. And if you drive all the way to the end of Henderson, you go past the Half Moon and there's always these super long lines. And then Sonia stand, and I went in there and dude, now since then, I mean, I go up to VB in the summer. I do not go without starting that leg, hit there for a burger or two, fries, and then going out. So
yeah, it's the only reason I worked at my dad's dealership in Selkirk was on the way out there was Sonia's. So that's the only reason I was interested in cars for a couple of months. But yeah, that if you haven't been, it'll just blow you out of the water.
I knew you'd finish with an amazing take, one of many. Great stuff, dude. Enjoy this game tonight. Enjoy the football on the weekend. And we'll look forward to catching up next week to get ready for the Final Four. And the latest on the Jets is they'll just be coming back home after this 5-game road trip. Thanks for doing this.
Sounds good, man. I'd say have a good time out there in Atlanta, but I think you'll be having a good time out there in KC next weekend.
Well, so. we'll see. We'll see. There, yes, lots of possibilities for this AFC Championship game. And one way or the other, I hope to be at it. Thanks for doing this, pal.
Yeah, have a good one.
All right, good stuff, folks. The minute you mention burgers or whatever, the chat just goes absolutely crazy. As I would love it. All right, we're gonna have Jesse Pollock join us in a few minutes right now. Great stuff from Brandon, and don't forget there should be a new episode of Skates and Plates tomorrow. So if you haven't already subscribed to Brandon's podcast, do that wherever you get your favorite pods. We do have some Bomber news to announce. Special teams demon Mike Miller, the GOAT of Third Down, is back with the Bombers for another year. That was announced earlier today by the football club. The signings keep going as the Unfinished Business Tour gets ready to roll this summer at IG Field and throughout the Canadian Football League. Of course, all of our Bomber reports are brought to you by our friends at Princess Auto, proud sponsors of the Bombers, Gold Eyes, Manitoba's top curling teams, and the gang here at Winnipeg Sports Talk. And Princess Auto is the place where you'll find the best deals on the most unique assortment of tools and equipment around. Everything you need to complete the projects on your list or start something new is at Princess Auto. Visit them at one of 2 Winnipeg locations, Panet Road or Portage Avenue West, or get those wheels turning on your next project and shop 24/7, 365 online at princessauto.com. Our friends at Culligan Water are pushing 70 years in the business as a family-owned company here in Winnipeg and Manitoba, hydrating the masses with the best in water products and solutions. Culligan really does have everything, starting with water softeners, filters, bottled water coolers, whole home systems, drinking water systems, just to name a few, and citywide water delivery services, not to mention commercial and industrial water products and solutions as well. Whatever you need, Culligan's got you covered. 1200 Sargent Avenue. Give them a call at 204-694-5180 or check them out online at drinkculligan.com. And wouldn't it be nice to sip a little CC tonight, cheersing a big Jets win in Toronto? Of course, Canadian Club, proud sponsors of Winnipeg Sports Talk and the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. And a pretty nice nightcap after a big win for your favorite hockey team. Right now, though, if you head into your local Manitoba liquor marts, make sure to check out the display. Big discount right now on Canadian Club Reserve 12-year. And a new rye as well, Rifle Rye from our friends at Beam Suntory. That is available now on sale as well at your local Manitoba liquor marts. Big shout out to our friends at Canadian Club for their great support of WST. All right, we will get to the Coolbet lines. I've cooked up a little Jets exclusive going head-to-head with the boys in Ontario at Coolbet. We'll get to that a little bit later on. But coming up in just a second, a very special guest. Nobody better to get us hyped for the game tonight between the Winnipeg Jets and the Toronto Maple Leafs. And he is a proud Winnipegger, flying the flag of Peg City daily, right there in the big smoke. I'm sure he'll be there today. And actually a pretty special day for our guy, Jesse Pollock, who joins us now. Dude, great to have you on the program. Thanks for doing this. And happy birthday as well. It's birthday week. Mike McIntyre first, and you get the Remis balloon treatment on WST. Oh, wait, we got you muted.
Oh, yeah, it doesn't like his AirPods there.
Oh, it's the AirPods. We'll just check out these. Let me take those things
Might
out.
have to exit and come back in.
Yeah, just exit and come back in, Jess. We'll give you another hero's welcome when you pop in right afterwards.
So he's got to
Throw
put the glasses
specs on and get it up. Folks, of course, you definitely want to be following Jesse on all the social platforms. He's a bit of a social media whiz at jpoly22. And recently seen playing mini sticks in downtown TO in front of an H&M. And always seen flying the Winnipeg Jets flag whenever the Leafs and Jets get together, and that will certainly be the case tonight. Remo, did you see the mini stick game?
Yeah, it's pretty genius. Playing mini sticks on the street. I love seeing Jesse on the street. Okay, I think we got this. Let me just load him in.
Only Jesse
quickly.
could pull it off. Jess, can we hear you and can you hear us? Oh. That was really weird. We heard you just for a second. It went black, and now we don't. Now we didn't. That was.
Okay, 1 sec. I think I got this.
Okay.
Okay, now we're good.
There we go.
Sorry, my mom was trying to call me, and then I don't know what's going on with my AirPods. But fellas, first of all, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate the balloon treatment. I'm 30, which is crazy. And I have to whip out the shirt today. Don't worry, this is not to support Leafs fans. This is very much to not support Leafs fans. Maybe next year, fellas. You know what? Tonight's gonna be so hyped. And I actually released a tweet the other day. It was on Tuesday, and I said, "This game is gonna be." My girlfriend's in a meeting in the other room, but I said this game's gonna be so hype, and Leafs fans were I just said, I'm so excited for this game. And Leafs fans were just roasting me. And I get it because it has to do with the Scheifele clip or whatever from last year. And they said, hey, nothing's better than being the Leafs, eh? But it's give me a break. Some of the, I love some of the fans out here because I work with some good Leafs fans, but a lot of them are just such assholes. It's just crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah, well, we see that each and every year when the team comes to the arena and they show up once a year and do their thing. Listen, it has turned into a bit of a rivalry, though. And I mean, it goes back, obviously through the pandemic, there's the Canadian division, saw way more of this club. But then when fans got back in the building, things got a little heated. And you're exactly right. There already would have been, I think, some hype around this game, the one visit of the Jets of the year. But the other thing we can't overlook is that these are the two best teams in Canada, Jesse. And I mean, the Jets are first place in the Western Conference right now, despite a bit of a stinker against Montreal on Tuesday. I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, this game should have this amount of hype, and I'm sure you're feeling a bit of a buzz around Southern Ontario right now as we get closer to puck drop.
Well, that's why I made the tweet in the first place, because it was like these are like two of the best teams in the league, and they're both Canadian going against each other. And Leafs fans are like, oh yeah, like for you guys it's your Stanley Cup, for us it's just another Thursday. It's like, shut up, you dweebs.
Well,
Like,
what's the Leafs Stanley Cup? because we know it's
I don't know
not
if
the
you guys
playoffs.
I don't know if you guys know who Jeff Viette is, but like this guy just like makes a point, and like I guess he was kidding, but like he just makes a point out of like trying to like make fun of people or like putting people down a little in like a very condescending way. He pisses me off sometimes, to be honest.
Well, that's the Toronto way.
Yeah, that's the Toronto way, and like, you know, I love it, Jeff. At the same time, I love it. Bring it. But like he just sometimes I'm just not crazy about his tone, and like he like quote tweeted it like some condescending thing like with a meme. I'm like, buddy, like I'm just trying to say this is going to be a good game. Is that a crime? Like, what is your deal?
You can't meme the leader of the Jets Army in Southern Ontario. Give us a break. Hey, listen, I'll tell you what, you're not the only one. The chat's banging right now. Everyone's fired up to see you. And listen, people should be fired up about this game tonight. I mean, overall, I know you popped on with Reem when I was over in when I was at the World Cup. But so it's first of all great to have you back on the show, and thanks for doing this. I mean, 45 games in, first place. I mean, we'll get back to this game tonight, but I mean, what a season. I mean, Bones is the man. These bozos that are overlooking him for Jack Adams need to revoke their own credentials. But I mean, you must have had just an incredible time just being a Jets fan there, because I mean, no one flies the flag more than you. And listen, you take it as good as you can get it when it happens, but the Jets have been giving it out all season long, which is part of the reason why this has been such a anticipated game tonight for people on both sides, but especially Winnipeggers.
Yeah, I mean, the Jets have been absolutely buzzing lately. Games here are always amazing. It has, like, I don't care that we're not in the same conference or anything. This has turned into low-key one of the best rivalries in the league. I cannot wait for Pierre-Luc Dubois to just mix it up with the Leafs tonight, because you can just count on him for doing that. He's an absolute beauty. We actually just released a new video with him on BarDown. If you guys want to check it out, we tried to see like how good we are compared to him, like his NHL rating, and it was a lot of fun. But man, I hope we keep that guy. But
yeah, no kidding. You need to just keep on working him. Keep on working him. The team will be. He's playing with Kyle Connor. I mean, I'm getting more optimistic about it the better the team plays.
I am too, and I think that like Bones has just done so much for the squad. Like even just being around the team, like when you get to like be around them as a member of the media, it's like it's been such good vibes with the team, especially compared to last year. Last year things kind of seemed like a bit like weird, but this year things have just seemed really light, really nice, and yeah, I mean our top six is unreal, can go against anyone, and I'm kind of curious if we're going to make a move to kind of. We'll have to see what happens with certain players coming back into the lineup who are injured, but like what's going to happen? Are we going to try to go for a good third liner? I know Lowry is obviously a center, but like is Jonathan Taves someone who the Jets could potentially be interested in?
We were just talking about him earlier on the show. He's such an intriguing guy. I mean, not only great story of him coming home, but I mean, dude, the guy can still play. One of the best in the face-off circle. And I know you pay attention to what Bones is saying afterwards. He's always talking about face-offs, and that's been something the Jets haven't been very good at. And then the intangibles of a player like that with that sort of experience. I mean, if it's not going to cost you the sun and the moon, I don't know how that couldn't make your team much more dangerous when it comes to the playoffs, because it's crazy that we're talking about this at game 45 right now. We are looking ahead to the playoffs, and that's something this team has earned by what they've done through the first half plus of the season.
Could you imagine if the Jets actually played against the Leafs in the Stanley Cup final? Like, I don't want to jinx it, but I think I would actually like explode.
It would be, listen, dare to dream. Listen, that would also mean the Leafs would win a playoff series. So yeah. We got to get to that point too. That hasn't happened in a long, long time. Although, all joking aside, this team is too good to have been as brutal as they've been in the playoffs. And I mean, they had to choke against Montreal that year when Montreal then beat Winnipeg after the sweep against Edmonton. Just doesn't make a lot of sense. And the crazy thing for the Leafs is you can basically start selling tickets for the Tampa series right now. I mean, Boston's running away with that series, and we know what's going to happen. It's Tampa-Toronto in that first round, and listen, they could be bounced overall.
I'm taking Tampa in that one. Last year, I'm not kidding. And I don't like to be, I'm not going to say like, oh, I told you so. But I just remember last year got interviewed by like, I think it was like some students were like filming a video from like a local school here. And they just asked my opinion. I said, Tampa is too good. The Leafs always find a way to blow it. And I remember after Game 5, all these Leafs fans were in my ear giving me a bunch of crap because I was at Maple Leaf Square. And yeah, there it is. and I specifically said the Lightning have the Leafs exactly where they want them, and they need them 2 games in a row. And I was in Maple Leaf Square. I'm not kidding. You could hear a pin drop, and like. You got to understand, like, there's like thousands of people outside of Maple Leaf School. Did
you have a bodyguard?
No, I had nothing. And I was just at the front. And like, when the Lightning scored, like, you could hear me. Like, I was just like let's go. Like, yes. And like, when they lost Game 6 and the Tavares goal got called back, I was like, this is actually hilarious. And then when they lost Game 7, you just can't make it up.
By the way, for podcast listeners, we are looking at a picture of Jesse in Maple Leaf Square amongst thousands of Leafs fans at last year's playoffs, wearing a Jets jersey, holding up a sign that says, I'm just here for the first round exit. One of the things I love, other than your enthusiasm, is the stones that it takes to go and pull that off. Well, who knows? You'll probably have another chance to do that again this year. Jesse Pollock's with us from BarDown. Jesse, we've got to talk to you about your big debut at the skills competition with the Winnipeg Jets. I mean, as a guy that's such a big fan, a fun dude, that must have been an absolute thrill. Take us through the day, the experience, and how it went for you.
Yeah, I mean, I remember the Jets came to Toronto in September because obviously the Jets are a partner of TSN's. We broadcast a ton of their regional games on TSN3, as all listeners here know. And I remember, I think Christina Litz, who works for the Jets, said, they mentioned in a PowerPoint presentation that the Jets were having a skills competition. And sorry, these camera angles just tripped me out a little bit. So immediately, like, my ears and my boss at BarDown, Dave Crick's ears, like, both kind of perked up, and we're like, okay, here's an opportunity. So we could just like kind of made it happen. I was in the World Juniors right before. I was at the World Juniors right before, so I went like from Moncton to Winnipeg, from Moncton to Toronto to pick up my hockey stuff, then back to Winnipeg, and it was just the best time. Like, huge, like, biggest thanks to the Jets for helping make that happen. Like, I really think that, I think it's like a nice symbiotic relationship that we have with the Jets, and a lot of hockey teams. Hopefully, we hope to form that. It's like, I think we can work together to help make hockey a really fun. We can help make hockey culture more fun, more lighthearted. Like, I think that, like, there's so much seriousness that's associated with hockey for like no reason. It's really just like a fun game that, athletes are living out their dream. Like, they shouldn't be portrayed as like so stiff. Like, they should be loose. Like, a lot of these guys are great guys. So it was a great opportunity to get to meet some of the players, get to know some of the players a little better. I already knew some of the players. Like, Pierre-Luc Dubois is just like a great guy. Like, I have nothing but good things to say about him. He's someone who's really trying to make the game fun. I think, like, whenever we've asked him to do anything without hesitation, like, I had flame tape, he was like, give me the flame tape in the dressing room. And then, like, another time, like, he's just like, give me your gloves. And during the skills competition, I gave him my gloves. So he's just like a great personality. And like, I think that, I just have a lot of respect for him. Brendan Dillon is like a huge beauty. Love that guy. And you know what? Surprisingly, I don't know, maybe surprising to some. To me, I was kind of surprised. Best chirper on the team, funniest guy was Connor Hellebuck. I was like pleasantly surprised.
It was so great to see. And you know what? You got in there and it got close. And I mean, you kind of mentioned how weird last year was. I mean, listen, we were here every single day talking about it. It was incredibly disappointing. And that team didn't seem like it was having a lot of fun. Bones, from the day that he took over, was trying to really rebuild that culture, and it is night and day. And I don't think anybody that is a Jets fan had a better front row seat to it than you, from being around the team for a little bit. And I mean, it's showing on the ice right now as well, not to mention the great stuff the Jets are doing social media wise, showing off these guys. And I think really bringing in some of the fans that maybe had gotten a little iffy about the direction of the club over the last 2 seasons.
Oh, like instantly at the beginning of the year, because we were at the car wash, and instantly you just could feel like, okay, like these guys are a little more loose, like things are feeling really light around here. And Bones made some big decisions when he came over. Like obviously, like what happened with their captaincy, like that. You talk about me having stones. That guy's got some stones. But like props to him. He had, like obviously, like we're very thankful to Blake Wheeler for everything he's done for the organization. It goes without saying.
Still
that, like,
playing his ass off for this team right now.
Of course, still playing his ass off, and like he has really always played his ass off. Like this is a guy who like always puts his heart into the team, and maybe I don't know, maybe Wheels even reached a point where like it became just it's a lot being a captain for a long time in like a market like Winnipeg where they care about hockey so much. It's not exactly the easiest. I'd imagine it'd be pretty taxing at times. So
I have no idea. I have no idea what what's inside his head. But I will say this, and I've said it on the show a number of times. The greatest demonstration of leadership this year has been how Blake Wheeler has handled what was presented to him at the beginning of the season. And I think it's had a big effect on the rest of the team, allowing everyone to come up. And, you got a ton of leaders on this. Jess, for your birthday, now knowing it's your birthday, it's too bad you weren't back here in the Peg, although I guess you will be able to see the game. I started it off just the way you would have wanted to. A great Sal's breakfast, reading up about the games. Oh, my God. Remis has got the confetti in here now, too, for the birthday boy.
Did you hammer a donut? A Sal's donut?
You know what? I didn't go with the donut. I had just my good old home style special, although I did consider potentially getting a red velvet for post-show, but... listen, you can't go wrong. I'm a reg at Pembina and Stafford, and one of the great spots, and I know you always try and get back there
when
too
I'm in town.
while you're in town. Are you going to be at the game tonight? Is this where you're celebrating the birthday?
Yeah, I'm going with 5. I'm going with 5 of my buddies. 4 of them are like Winnipeggers who live in Toronto now. Like 4. Actually, one of my best friends came to town, and he's here right now. So we're gonna go, the 4 of us, and then one of our other buddies is a Leafs fan here. So we were thinking it would have been hilarious if we painted our chats and it said "Go Jets," but like instead of the T, the guy's just wearing a Leafs jersey.
Not bad. Well, I'll tell you what, do us a favor. You're killing on all the social channels, whether it's at jpolly22 on Twitter or on, what's your Instagram? Is it the same thing?
Jesse Pollock 22.
Jesse Pollock 22. Fire some good content out in and around the game. And hopefully we will see around 9:30 p.m. Winnipeg time a big Jesse Pollock celebration walking out of that stadium, that arena after the game tonight.
There'll be a post. Don't worry about it. Keep your eyes out for it.
Hey, dude, happy birthday. Thanks for doing this. Enjoy the game tonight, and let's get you back on soon as the Jets keep on continuing on this really fun season so far.
Sounds great, guys. Thanks for having me. Go Jets. Always a treat.
Let's go. The Jets' #1 hype man, Jesse Pollock, a BarDown with us as we get ready for tonight's big game. What a fun dude he is, and that was great stuff to have him on the program. All right, we got to get to the Coolbet lines, and as I mentioned, cooking up a little exclusive going head-to-head with Jake and Pat, the guys out in Southern Ontario. Before we do that, big shout-out to Nick and Nikki. Maybe victory blizzards for the whole family after the game tonight. Just saying. A lot on the line this evening. Of course, they'll still be open after the game. The Nick and Nikki DQs open till 10 or 11, depending on where you are. 4 locations: DQ Niverville, DQ Northgate, DQ Polo Park, DQ St. Anne's. Some great new Blizzard flavors, those amazing stack burgers, honey barbecue chicken fingers, and more. They've got it all. And of course, if you do want a ice cream cake or one of the Blizzard cakes for a party or an event coming up soon, hit them up on Instagram at DQ Manitoba. I'll get it ready for you. Quick and easy pickup at any of the 4 Nick and Nikki DQs. Big shout out to Nick and Nikki for their support since day one of Winnipeg Sports Talk. And wherever you are, and I know you might be tipping a couple tonight, make sure it's Little Brown Jug, Winnipeg's favorite local beer. And we've got a great Instagram contest that you've still got, a couple days, 2 days, so today and tomorrow to enter. This is what you need to do, folks, and you can win a $100 Little Brown gift card, Jug gift card, 4 cases of bright water, 24 cans of each flavor, a tour of Little Brown Jug's brewery for you and 5 friends, includes a beer flight and a tulip glass each, as well as a black Little Brown Jug t-shirt and a hat. All you need to do is go over to their Instagram post, Little Brown Jug Brewing, like the post, tag three friends, follow Little Brown Jug Brewing and bright.water on Instagram. And if you want, you can share the post to your story for an extra entry. All the details are there on the Little Brown Jug and White Brightwater giveaway. Just an awesome prize from our friends. Get on over that. Of course, pop down and check them out at the brewery. And you can also grab Brightwater there as well. And you can go online, littlebrownjug.ca, if you want citywide delivery. And I dropped this info yesterday on the program. Save the date, Wednesday, March 29th. The second edition of the very popular Winnipeg Sports Talk Sports Trivia Night at Little Brown Jug, hosted by yours truly, is going to get down on the 29th of March. Already curating questions for the big night. We'll let you know end of February or at the beginning of March on ticket information. We'll obviously have limited seating, much like we did last time. It'll be a ticket, which will include your first beer, and we'll look forward to seeing you then on the 29th of March. All right, let's get Remis in here. I do want to get to the Coolbet lines before we've done. I knew it was going to be fun to have Jesse on the program, and I knew he had to tone it down a little bit because his girlfriend was in a meeting in the next room. But I got to tell you what, I've been hyped all morning, I've been hyped all afternoon, and I cannot wait for this game tonight. And he was the perfect guy to have for our final guest today.
Could not contain his excitement for what's going on. Nice here. I'm going to the game with some buddies from Winnipeg. I don't know if the TSN cameras are going to find their way over to his seat at some point. I'm not sure. Although it is, when the Jets play the Leafs, they do bring out all the big guns for the joint TSN broadcast. I'm expecting full panel and post game. I'm assuming it's going to be on TSN Toronto Regional. Anyways, but yeah, great talk with Jesse. Got even more hyped for the game, if that's even possible. And I could tell people are excited by how many great people are in chat today. Awesome to see hovering around 400 the whole show. And if you haven't...
Yeah, I know a few you took the day off yesterday because you were so bent about the Montreal game. It's great to see you back today. Hit those thumbs up. We're getting close to 200, but we're pushing 400 in the chat. So please do hit that thumbs up. And hey, if you're not usually around here, you found us some other way, hit that red subscribe button and make sure you're with us on a daily basis. Helps us big time grow the channel. And great for you. It's completely free. And when you don't catch us live, you'll be able to just fire up your YouTube and the freshest, latest WST content will be waiting there for you. And of course, if you just found us on YouTube, we're also available on all your podcast networks. So wherever you get your favorite podcast, type in Winnipeg Sports Talk. And if you can't catch the YouTube, you got the fresh audio content at your convenience as well. All right, let's get to the Coolbet lines for today. You know where we're starting. We're starting with this game tonight between the Winnipeg Jets and the Toronto Maple Leafs. And the Jets, not surprisingly, an underdog on the road. But I'll say this, Remo, plus 138 for Winnipeg. I know a lot, the Pope and some of the guys are saying Coolbet's been selling the Jets short all year. That's great if you're betting on them. I'm going to try not to mush the Jets by betting on them individually on this game, but if you do want to get at it, plus 138 for Winnipeg to win on the money line. The Leafs minus 163. The total for the game is 6.5. You're actually getting plus money on the over. So if you think there'll be 7 or more goals, plus 104 there. And of course, let's check out these goal lines. Who's going to light the lamp for Winnipeg tonight? Top of the list is Austin Matthews at plus 102. Then is William Nylander. Then is John Tavares. Explain to me, Remis, how John Tavares has a lower number than Kyle Connor. This is just a perfect example of what we've been talking about.
You asking me that? Sorry, my headphones fell. I dropped my mouse.
Yeah, I said makes sense of how John Tavares has a shorter goal number than KFC.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense. I'm only assuming because all the Leaf fans are hounding Coolbet and betting it down. But probably. Yeah, Kyle Connor should be up there. I mean, Nikolai Ehlers and Mark Scheifele have been pretty awesome. So I would probably lean one of those two for value. Where's Cole Perfetti on here? Do they even know he exists at Coolbet? Plus 500. The score is I don't want to say his hometown is from Whitby, but he does have It's too many family and friends at the game to count, Hustler, and plus 500 to
Hey,
score.
if you like the homecoming narrative, finally doing something positive for the Winnipeg Jets, Scheifele or Perfetti would be great. Now, Remo, we'll get to the other games in a second, but head over to the exclusives. As I mentioned, a little bit of a head-to-head matchup. Pat and Jake, big Leaf guys in Toronto. You know where my allegiances lie. So we've got 2 daily exclusives for this game tonight. The Coolbet Daily Exclusive, Ride with Huss. Mark Scheifele and Nikolai Ehlers, both to record a point, and the Winnipeg Jets to win is plus 450. And if you want to ride with Pat and Jake, Matthews and Nylander, both to record a point, and the Toronto Maple Leafs to win, plus 175. I know where the value is on that board, my friend.
Yeah, well, Scheifele and Ehlers, playing together on the power play, or they end up on the same line. I mean, you just need 1 goal there, and you think the Jets are going to win. That's actually not too bad. So maybe I'll ride with you. Who knows?
Yeah, I'm gonna be on that. So plus 450. Ehlers and Scheifele both to record a point, and Jets to win. That's the Ride with Huss exclusive, and Pat and Jakes have the Matthews and Nylander and the Toronto Maple Leafs. They do have the old grand salami, if you will. Someone roars, Canada scores. Jets, Leafs, Habs, Oilers to combine for 15 plus goals. That's plus 165. They got a tennis and a Raptors exclusive as well. Those are always really good lines, kind of juiced up a little bit. So make sure to check those when you're going at it. But anyways, back to the rest of the games in the league tonight. Wild and Hurricanes. Canes a big minus 181 favorite. That would be nice for the rest of the teams in the Central Division. Cool off the Wild a little bit. Blue Jackets, not favored too often at home. They're minus 158 favorites against the Ducks. You got Paul Maurice's Panthers. Maurice, if you just tuned in, 25 grand poorer after getting whacked by the NHL today for his comments post-game against the Leafs on his rivalry with Francois St. Laurent. Panthers are minus 258 in Montreal. And Bruins and Rangers. Bruins are always favored, but this is very close to a pick 'em. Interesting. If you like Boston, minus 113, not a bad number for the Bruins. Flyers minus 231 at home against the Blackhawks. That game won't be very good. We mentioned the Jets-Leafs game. We've also got Buffalo and the Islanders tonight. Buffalo minus 118 favorite at home. Big Central Division matchup between 2 teams that desperately need to keep winning. The Blues and Preds. Predators, a slight road favorite, minus 114 in St. Louis. Caps minus 211 in Arizona to take on the Coyotes. Tampa and Edmonton. Tampa blowing out the Canucks last night. They're a slight underdog against Edmonton. Actually, I'm leaning Tampa. That might show up on my daily pick later on in the Coolbet channels. Jersey minus 124 in Seattle against the Kraken, who have now lost 2 in a row after running the table on that 8-game roadie. Kraken plus 105 is a home dog. Detroit and Vegas. Vegas hasn't looked good in their last couple of games. They'll look to get back on it. Minus 170. And Dallas and the LA Kings. The Kings minus 133. Dallas, of course, up 3-0 last night. Lost 5-3 to the San Jose Sharks. If you haven't played a Coolbet before, use the promo code WST on your first deposit for a 100% bonus up to $200. I'm just counting this, Reem. It's 13 games in the league tonight.
Yes.
Man, this is a very, very busy night. The DraftKings lineup, so you'll have plenty of options when you're picking your squad.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to take a second to look. One thing we didn't mention in that Minnesota game, Matt Dumba, healthy scratched for this. Is this performance? Is there a trade to announce coming?
Really?
I'm not sure what to make of the situation. Michael Russo being that he won't be in the lineup, and a lot of speculation on Twitter today about Matt Dumba.
Listen, that is surprising. I mean, he is just trying to think back. Let's go to
here. Dean Evison saying, according to Michael Russo on Twitter, we had a real good meeting. He knows why he's sitting out tonight. And Michael Russo saying it's a hockey decision, not injury. And he's got a big article at The Athletic. Why are they scratching him? What does it do to his trade value? So that's a name that could be on the block. Seemingly Dumba's been on the block for the last couple of years.
Well, he's got an expiring contract at the end of the season. He's making $6 million. He is a player that I'm sure some other teams would like. And, with they just gave $49 million to Matt Boldy. They've got all that dead cap money the next couple of seasons, $14.7 million in 2023, 2024, and $14.743 million in 2024, 25. So you knew that was going to affect Bill Guerin's ability to make a few deals. So that'll be very interesting to see how that goes. That being said, normally he's a pretty important part of that Minnesota Wild blue line. So I don't know. We'll talk about that maybe a little bit tomorrow on the program. All in all, though, Reem, we are about 3 hours from puck drop. Do you have any big plans for the game tonight?
Watching it at
you
home.
never have big plans anymore.
I was talking with Ezzy about how our lives have changed since having kids. And I was just like, I can't leave the house after 8 p.m. anymore.
What would you do if you were a single parent? Do you think
I don't know.
Could pull it off?
What? Sorry?
Do you think you could pull it off?
I think it's really hard, and I admire all the single parents out there doing it. Extremely difficult.
That's crazy.
I'm not sure. I'm lucky, but my parents are here. You do what you can, what you have to do to make it work. So yes, I think I would be able to, but it doesn't mean it would be easy.
No, that's right. Yeah, I guess I would. It seems pretty intimidating even right now with what you're dealing with right now. I get to experience this all vicariously through Remis. Through every day we get together, we're going through the show, talking what's going on, texting at night, and I'll be out at BP or whatever doing my thing. And hey, sorry, I've just got a PVR. Pause the game here for Bath. Don't text me and tell me what happens. We'll come back to it. Hey, you got to figure it out one way or the other. Anyways, this is going to be a lot of fun, and tomorrow's show should be great too. Hopefully, talking about a big win tonight. I have a feeling that would be a hell of a way to go into a big weekend. Talking Jets, NFL playoffs, and more.
Yeah, here we got people here asking for some jersey talk. Huss, have you seen the latest? Before we go.
The All-Star?
The All-Star jerseys have leaked on Twitter. They're going to be officially announced. This is what Jomo's going to be wearing. Here it is. They're based on the late 90s Eastern and Western Conference jerseys. Here they are. You're going with the Miami Vice theme.
I was just going to say, I could just hear the Miami Vice theme in the background.
Yes. And there's the Eastern black with white bottom. That star trimmed, kind of like the Dallas Stars. I'm not, I like this style. I'm not like a huge fan, but I'm happy that they brought this style All-Star jersey back. I have in the background here, I got the purple Western Conference, Owen Nolan.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Top right behind Remis's head.
Yeah, and then here's the West. So I don't know and there's only East and West. Normally they have, 4 jerseys, one for each division. I'm not crazy about the Miami Vice colors, but I do love this style. So
the colors are cool. I mean, you know what? It's in Miami. You kind of want to show off a little bit of the host city, and certainly that would be connected with it. Although I will say this, I love the Panthers retro reverse jersey this year.
They're my number one.
I thought it was one of the coolest, and I thought that maybe they'd go with that sort of a theme for them. But honestly, All-Star jerseys are very low on my list when it comes to, we just see them for one weekend and then they're gone. So don't care too much. But I tell you what, I'm looking forward to seeing Josh Morrissey and hopefully another Jet or two once we get final results of the voting. I know there's a big push that many of you were on for Connor Hellebuck, and Hellebuck said he really wanted to be there. So certainly deserves to be there. I hope that he will be, and we'll find out whether Josh will have any company going to the All-Star game, I'd imagine, over the course of the next couple days.
Yeah, and a couple other... Yeah, first of all, I do want to know who it's going to be, and I do like, maybe you don't like the All-Star jerseys because they haven't been that great the last couple of years. I feel like there's one that was like gray and white. They were so bland. There was no color in them, so nice to see some color back in these. We do have a couple new third jerseys, Huss. I got to weigh in on these. People have been asking me, Running Man in chat. Here's the Arizona third jersey. Yeah, these are a thumbs down for me. They're just one solid color with some Tetris-looking pattern at the bottom. I'm really not a fan of hockey jerseys with name logos across the chest. There's just nothing. There's nothing going on here, Hustler, on this Arizona Coyotes third jersey. They could do way better than this. Like the reverse retro before was awesome. I like how they brought back the Kachina. Like they went away from this color scheme because it sucked and brought back the 96 OG jersey. So these are a no from me. And here, the Vancouver Canucks debuted their new updated skate logo jerseys. Shout out to sportslogos.net. They switched up the original jersey and made it worse, so I don't like what they did. They got this little gap here. They took the white out of the logo. They're using the current number font instead of the original number font, which is a big L for me. That's why the Jets reverse retros are so good, because they're using the original number font. So I don't like what the Canucks did, but I do like the original 90s.
I hated those jerseys in the 90s, and I hate them today. And you probably couldn't have done anything with that skate logo jersey to make me like it, considering how I just think back to those series against Jim Sandlack and Sergio Momesso and all those. Still pissed off we blew a 3-1 lead to them as well. So I don't know. That's probably something that's just in the back of my head based on PTSD of being a young hockey fan in Winnipeg.
It was nice, though. I watched the Canucks Lightning game. They did wear the original ones honoring Gino Ojic.
Yeah, that was cool.
Before the game, which was pretty cool. And also, Steven Stamkos scored his 500th goal. An incredible accomplishment. Had a hat trick last night. And actually during the game, he met during the he gave him an intermission interview, and he mentioned how they gave him such a good reception because they're Canadian fans and, they know hockey. They're like, well, do you have any other favorite goals? He's like, I've scored 50, 60 goals. Sometimes nice to do it in a city where it's Canadian. And they know the accomplishment. We all remember he scored number 60 here. And
I was at that game. That was the last game of the season was it year 1 or year 2?
I think it was, it might have been year 1. But yeah, he scored 60, a huge ovation. You don't see that too often. But, that guy's an all-time player, 500 goals. What an accomplishment. So that was nice. Nice to see yesterday in terms of hockey history.
Yeah, well, 200 goals for KFC. He'll be looking for 201 tonight, and the Winnipeg Jets will be looking for win number 30 on the season. Connor Hellebuck gets the start. Some new look lines for Bones as his squad going into tonight, as we heard from the head coach. We'll see how long they last. That being said, can't wait to see what happens tonight. Certainly will look for a much better performance from the club than what we saw on Tuesday. And that's been pretty much the MO all year long, bouncing back from a poor game with a string of solid play. They'll need it tonight to beat a very good Toronto Maple Leafs team. Thank you to all of you for making WST a part of your day. Thanks to our guests, John Matisz, Brandon Rewucki, Jesse Pollock. Tomorrow, big show. Weeb's World, Ken Weeb with his thoughts on tonight's game and a look ahead to a busy weekend for the Jets in Ottawa and Philly. Scott Billick's going to pop by. And hey, it's divisional playoff weekend in the NFL. You know that means a visit from Lee Hacksaw Hamilton. Gang, thanks so much for being with us. Enjoy the game tonight. Go Jets, go. We'll see you tomorrow on WST.
Oh, my God. Oh! Shut it down. Let's go home.
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.